Hey, everybody! It's time to start the drive. It's 6 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. A really gorgeous day outside. I mean, this is nice fall weather. 68 degrees here in Bucolic, Watertown. Probably a little warmer there in downtown Nashville, just a few miles away. And we're going to try to get you home safely so you can kick off a great weekend. It's going to be that kind of weekend that, you want to get out a little bit on Saturday and maybe, Sunday, settle down and watch some good football. I mean, I'm telling you, this is the fall. I wish that I had a different story to tell you. I almost started today's show with that scene out of Groundhog Day, where Bill Murray wakes up every morning to Sonny and Cher singing, "Babe, I got you, babe." Because every day lately has been the same as regard to this speaker story. Another day, another vote, and we're not making any progress whatsoever. And literally, it's just a sad state of affairs. By the way, I'm going to give you the latest on what happened today while you were at work, and give you what we know. And then I will, coming up after we take our commercial break, I'll take some phone calls because I'm bereft of ideas. What do you think should happen? So if you want to go ahead and get on the line, 615-737-9986 on that question. We're not going to have a Speaker of the House today. Doesn't look like we could possibly have one until next Tuesday. And honestly, at this point, nobody has a clear idea as to how this thing is going to get resolved. So here we go. I'll give you the start. Now, Jim Jordan at one point said, look, I don't think that I can get there, so why don't we put forward a measure that would give Patrick McHenry, the Speaker pro tem, the ability to do more than he can right now. Sort of, make him a super Speaker pro tem, at least for a short period of time while we sort this out and get the appropriations bills done and everything. And they shot that down. That wasn't a good enough idea. No, nobody wanted to do that. Everybody thought that was a bad idea, including Patrick McHenry, who said, no, I don't think that's a good idea at all, and I don't want to do it. So, Jordan says, well, should I go out there and should we try it one more time? And since there's a lot of support for Jordan among Republicans, just not enough, they decided, well, we'll give it one more shot. So, it was his third shot. The first time he went up for a vote, he had 200 votes. The second time he went up for a vote, he lost one. It came down to 199. So today, they're thinking that perhaps the third time was the charm. It was not the charm. He put his name out there again, and it went to 194. He's 25 votes short, going in the wrong direction. So he called everybody back in. They went behind closed doors again up on Capitol Hill. All the Republicans get into a room. Apparently, it was a pretty raucous session. And he said, well, I'll put it before the caucus. Should I keep trying? And the answer came back a resounding no. No, you're not going to be able to get there. It's time to try something different. What is the thing? I don't know. And nobody in the room seemed to know. And so as it stands right now, they have told everybody, go home for the weekend. We'll see you on Monday evening. We'll get together behind closed doors and see if anybody's come up with a great idea, see whose name we might throw into the ring next. But if McCarthy wasn't acceptable and Scalise wasn't acceptable and Jordan wasn't acceptable, who the hell is acceptable? Who do you find? Who's that great Republican that's going to rise up from the ashes that that we have here in the form of Republican caucus in the House? Who's going to rise up and be that person that leads us all to vote for him or her? I don't see that person. I don't know who that person is. There's 221 Republicans. And, Matt Gaetz is apparently, the rumor is, going to put his name in. That's going nowhere. That'll never get out of the conference. They'll never take that to the floor. Somebody might throw his name in and saying, I'm going to vote for him, but that doesn't mean, I think the only person that would vote for Matt Gaetz might be at this point Matt Gaetz. So that's not the answer. That's not the answer. So let's start out from the day. Here's Jordan this morning meeting with reporters bright and early, giving a big rah-rah speech, trying to get everybody, to get in line behind me.
We need to do what we said we were going to do. We need to do what we told them we were going to do when they elected us and put us in office. And frankly, we can't do that if the House isn't open. We can't open the House until we get a speaker.
Well, that's right. You can't go forward with anything major. You can't take any votes until you find a speaker. And then there was Kevin McCarthy, who went to the floor of the House and actually gave a pretty good speech nominating Jordan once again, giving him his hearty endorsement.
Mr. Speaker, we have an important job to do. The American people expect us to focus on the most pressing issues. We've watched what the Democrat majority has done and brought us inflation like we haven't seen since the 70s. We've watched what the Democrats have done by opening up our border, bringing fentanyl, killing Americans each and every day. And now we have a war in Israel. This country is too great for small visions. Trust me, being Speaker is not an easy job, especially in this conference. But I've seen Jim spend his entire career fighting for freedom, no matter what, no matter the odds, and I know he is ready for the job. And so it is my honor to say, as a member of the Republican Conference, I am directed by the vote of that conference to present for the election to the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives the name of my friend, the Honorable Jim Jordan, a representative from the state of Ohio. I yield back.
And the crowd went wild, but not wild enough. The Democrats are just loving it. I mean, you remember one time there was an old saying about Democrats. It was Will Rogers who said, "I'm not a member of any organized party. I'm a Democrat." I think that really could be said of Republicans right now. I'm not a member of any organized political party. I'm a Republican. And the Democrats are sort of looking at this and they're just loving this. Oh, they're just having a great time. They're talking now about how the Republicans are involved in a civil war among themselves.
Every day, the majority chooses to engage in a Republican civil war that is threatening their own members instead of engaging with us in the work of the American people is a day that weakens this institution and the standing of our country.
That's Representative Catherine Clark, who put the name of Hakeem Jeffries into the pool for Democrats to vote, and he actually lost a few votes, or maybe there were a few Democrats who said, to hell with it, I'm going to just go on home for the weekend, left early. I don't know. It's not sort of probably what happened. So we get to the time, and they do a roll call vote, and it takes about an hour to go through all 435 names. And at the end of the day, the vote came out about like this.
The House will come to order. The tellers agree in their tally that the total number of votes cast is 429, of which the Honorable Jim Jordan of the state of Ohio has received 194. The Honorable Hakeem Jeffries of the state of New York has received 210. The Honorable Patrick McHenry of the state of North Carolina has received 6. All right, the House will come to order. The House will come to order. The Honorable Byron Donalds of the state of Florida has received 2. The Honorable Tom Emmer of the state of Minnesota has received 1. Lee Zeldin of the state of New York has received 4. The Honorable Steve Scalise of the state of Louisiana has received 8. The Honorable Mike Garcia of the state of California has received 1. The Honorable Kevin McCarthy of the State of California has received 2. The Honorable Bruce Westerman of the State of Arkansas has received 1. No person having received a majority of the whole number of votes cast by surname, a Speaker has not been elected. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess, subject to the call of the Chair.
And so that's the entire activity on the floor of the House today. As I said, the Republicans got behind closed doors, and Jordan asked him, should I put my name up a 4th time? And they asked him to vote on it, and after the vote came back, no, really, we're just not going to get you. It's not going to happen for you, Jim. And then there were a lot of people, according to those who were in the room, who said, we should stay here. We should just buckle down and just keep trying to get somebody across the goal line until we exhaust all the options. And no, they decided that they would not do that. That they would send everybody home and say, come back on Monday. We'll get behind closed doors once again at about 6:30 on Monday, a travel day. And then, on Tuesday, we'll go at this one more time. But tick tock, time is running out, and there is urgent business that needs to be attended to. We have spending bills that need to be cranked out and approved by the House. There's got to be time for that to go over to the Senate, and for the Senate they're going to have their objections. The Democrat-controlled Senate is never going to sign off on everything that the Republicans send them, so then they'll have to go to conference, and that takes time. And, we don't have an abundance of time here now to solve some of these problems that really are, time-consuming. And, you've got the president who's now talking about, I need $100 billion for aid to Israel and the Palestinians, and we need money for Ukraine, and we need money for Taiwan, and we'll even throw in a little money for the border, and that measure is now been proposed by the president, but will not be disposed because we don't have a House of Representatives. We have no functioning House of Representatives, and therefore we have a non-functioning Congress. One third of our government is not operating the way it should. And I don't know how long this is going to take. I heard somebody that I really admire as a reporter up there on Capitol Hill. He works for Fox. You may have seen him. His name's Chad Pergram. This guy's brilliant, knows everything there is to know. I mean, as long as I worked covering the House, he's a fount of knowledge. And Chadley said, I think it's going to be a couple of weeks. Could be a couple of weeks. They may run right up to the deadline for the government closing again before they come up with a plan or that everybody finds acceptable. But I don't know who this person is. I don't see. I would like personally the next person I'd like to see nominated, because I think he's an adult, and I think he's a smart guy. And I think that he is somebody who is admired roundly up on Capitol Hill. And I'd like to see our own Tennessee's Mark Green be put into nomination. I've heard he doesn't want it. I've heard he's not interested in it. He has other things that are more interesting to him. But, somebody's got to stand up. Somebody's got to step up. And I don't know at this point who it is. In a moment, I'll ask you the question. What do you think should happen next? What would you like to see happen in this sordid tale? Right now, it's 20 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Hey, listen up, because today it started. That's right, over at Genesis Diamonds. Your chance to get that rare, hard-to-find luxury pre-owned Rolex timepiece. Well, the sale began today, will continue through tomorrow. Genesis is hosting an epic pre-owned luxury Rolex event featuring a stunning new selection of these hard-to-find watches. Hulks, Submariners, Daytonas, Pepsis, Batmans, all the hottest models that people have waited years to get. And for now, for this event, you can choose from 5 years financing or get a free pair of 2-carat lab-grown diamond earrings valued at $5,000. Imagine a luxury pre-owned ladies Rolex for just $199 a month, or a Sea Dweller or a Submariner for men, just $299 a month. No waiting list, no games. Just the watch you want at a great Genesis value price that you deserve. Also for this event, if you have a pre-owned Rolex that you'd like to, trade in or make, sell, buy, or trade with, they'll be happy to talk to you about that. Come see the largest selection of luxury pre-owned Rolex watches in the state. Get the timepiece of your dreams and take advantage of special financing. That's today and tomorrow only at Genesis Diamonds, your home for luxury pre-owned Rolexes, Green Hills and Cool Springs, on approved credit while supplies last. See store for details.
Hey everybody, Dan Mattis with Nashville's Morning News on WTN. I'm here at the Nashville Rescue Mission doing the interviews that I look forward to doing every single year. These are incredible stories of people who have had amazing recoveries. Thanks to this amazing facility, they are able to get clean and lead a more productive life. The date of our annual radiothon is going to be Monday, November 20th. Listen in and please donate. You can get more information at 99.7 WTN, including a link to the website for Nashville's Rescue Mission.
Specifically regarding precision ag, this is a movement or an initiative that Pheasants and Quail Forever is taking on where we can help farmers take advantage of the data they collect and during harvest, during planting season, and use that to identify areas in the field that are underproducing for whatever reason. Maybe it's shade, water, there's perennial wet spots, odd areas that are just hard to farm. Farm equipment's getting big now, and it's hard to farm some of these smaller areas. And so these areas that the yield isn't high enough to exceed the input costs, we're losing money on those acres. So gotcha. Are there some alternate land use covers, wildlife covers that we can use and put on the ground that benefit wildlife but also benefit the bottom line? There's a lot of opportunities, a lot of conservation programs and conservation practices out there that can benefit the land, and they require management. And so some people might be familiar with the Conservation Reserve Program, or CRP. Yeah. And that is a program administered by USDA for farmers and landowners to take those certain areas out of production and return them to a wildlife cover beneficial to different wildlife.
We started taking non-productive acres years ago and putting them in CRP, and seeing a great benefit of that, not only for wildlife, but erosion control and the money side of it. You know, we have to make a living to stay in business just like everybody else. You know, if you've got non-productive acres that you're losing money on, and you can get something out of them, plus benefit the soil from erosion, plus benefit the wildlife.
The latest on the war between Israel and Hamas. President Biden spoke on some American hostages being released, and Andy Ogles joins WTN and discusses the chaos going on as there's still no Speaker of the House in the House of Representatives. Coming up, 3:30, Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
All right, that's Mac Morey in the newsroom. He's got it all covered there. In the control room today, in for Chris Weber, is Mason Fleming, pushing all the blinky buttons so ably. On our phone lines are open at 615-737-9986. I've laid out everything that happened or didn't happen today with regard to the ongoing efforts to find somebody to be the Speaker of the House of Representatives. So my question to you is, what would you like to see happen now? I mean, you're the boss. They're our employees. What message do you have for Republicans in the House? We'll start with Larry in Clarksville. Larry, well, hang on a second. Can we get Larry punched up here real quick? There we go. Larry in Clarksville, you're up with Brian on the drive. What do you say, Larry?
Hey, Brian, I've got a very simple answer. not one of their happy asses ought to get another day off until a speaker is elected. And let's stop giving them 1 cent of salary until they do what they're supposed to do and they elect a speaker, and let's see how fast they act then.
Yeah, that's a great idea. The only thing that stops that from happening is that you have to have a vote on that, and you can't have a vote without a speaker.
I could give them a vote, Brian. I can give them a vote real quick.
Well, you know what? I think that if they don't get this thing straightened out pretty quick, I think that, you and a lot of other people are going to have something to say about it when it comes election time. Larry, thank you so much for the call. Sarah in Nashville. Let's check in with Sarah, if I could, please. Sarah, you're up with Brian on the drive. What do you say, Sarah?
Hi, Brian. I believe that Jim Jordan represents we the people, and I think they need to either continue with him because he is going to do us a lot of good as speaker. I think they need to find, if they can't agree on him, somebody else that'll do the job and potentially flush out the Democrats, maybe with RFK Jr., because he does represent we the people as well. I like your idea about Mark Green. Mark Green is very
He's an adult.
Intelligent.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think they might be agreeable to Mark Green on both the we the people side and the establishment side. So
well,
those are
I hope that maybe we'll get a chance to see if that is true. Our next caller, let's go to Dan in Franklin. Hello, Dan. You're on with Brian on the drive. What do you say, Dan?
Hi, Brian. The one thing that I would like to see happen is I'd like to see the Republicans improve their communication with the American people. So what we're not doing is we're not telling everyone that just because you're unified, it's a good thing. The Democrats are using that against the Republicans. And also, it's a good thing that you have division. Lincoln, he got all the cabinet members were all the people that he didn't agree with. And so we're allowing the Democrats to control the conversation and make the Republicans look bad, where the Republicans should be saying the Democrats aren't helping us at all. They're not part of the solution. And also, when you have division, you have different ideas, and we want that. The Democrats don't do anything. They're not part of the solution, and Republicans are not making that clear enough in their communications with the press.
Well, I think it's interesting that you raised the name of Abraham Lincoln, because Lincoln, I think it's actually a biblical quote, said, "You know what? A house divided against itself cannot stand." And the Republicans are divided against themselves right now. I mean, the Democrats, they don't have a majority. It's up to the majority to rule, and the majority has not found a way to do that as yet. Thanks for the call, though. I greatly appreciate it. Kevin in Nolansville, you're up next on the drive.
Brian.
What do you think,
Brian,
Kevin? Going well.
I'm an American before I'm a Republican or an independent, or
Right.
my affiliation is to America. This makes the Republicans look terrible, and the Democrats can garner more votes than what the Republicans get for who they want. Jim Jordan is a lightning rod. I do not think that anything will move with Mr. Jordan, and it's obvious his peers don't even want him. I'm a veteran, and this makes me very sad to see America in this turmoil. Either you stand with the God's chosen people or you don't. We need to get our head out of our orifices and actually get back to the people's business. And I don't care who they bring to the table. I definitely think they need to stay there until they get somebody, even if it takes 20 rounds, as embarrassing as that is.
Yeah.
But the Republicans need to fall in line. Why is it that the Democrats can get 212 or 200 votes for a solid candidate, and the Republicans can't even break 205?
Well, I mean, I think the answer to that is that, that we well, I mean, there's really no good solution to this. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I hear the frustration. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. But somebody needs to step up, and that the Republicans need to get their act together, because you're right. We're looking pretty foolish right now. You know, we
Well,
have
if you're the
we have a
majority- if
no.
you're
Let me
the
let me finish up
majority-
here, Kevin, because I'm out of time. But I just want you to know that they're going to have to come up with some solution because we are in the majority, and we're supposed to be ruling, and we're supposed to be leading. We're all out of leadership. We don't have anybody that apparently that the team can coalesce around. 31 minutes now past the hour of 3:00.
"31 minutes after the hour of 3:00. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 73 degrees in Nashville. Slight breeze today. Expecting a beautiful weekend, fit perfectly for a Vols win. Traffic, weekend weather forecast coming up 5 minutes away. President Biden reacting to the news of 2 American hostages released by Hamas. Judith Renan and her daughter Natalie Renan. A family member said that they were in Israel for a relative's birthday, then they were taken hostage. The Israel Defense Forces confirming the 2 women are now with the Red Cross. Their conditions were not immediately clear. Karen Travers brings us the latest.
President Biden says he is overjoyed 2 American hostages released by Hamas will soon be reunited with their families. He says in a new statement the 2 women and their family will have the full support of the U.S. government as they recover and heal, adding, quote, "We should all respect their privacy in this moment." The president says his administration has been working around the clock to free American citizens taken hostage by Hamas. He thanks the governments of Qatar and Israel for their partnership in this effort. Mr. Biden adding, quote, "Jill and I have been holding close in our hearts all the families of unaccounted for Americans," and says he has no higher priority than the safety of Americans held hostage around the world.
And there's a new funding request from the Biden administration concerning these foreign affairs that includes $61.4 billion for Ukraine, $14.3 billion for Israel, and $9.15 billion for humanitarian aid, which would be split between Gaza, Ukraine, and Israel. And right now in the nation's capital, Tennessee Representative Andy Ogles joined WTN's The Matt Murphy Show today and explained how the closed-door meeting that ended Jim Jordan's run at Speaker was conducted today.
Let's say there's 3 candidates running for Speaker in conference. You hold a vote, and if no one gets 50% plus 1, the lesser vote-getting candidate drops off. So it goes from 3 candidates to 2. The 2 candidates go head-to-head. Whichever one of those gets 50% plus 1, they become the Speaker designee, which means they're the candidate, the chosen candidate for the House floor. But what happened was they held that secret ballot to essentially remove him as the chosen candidate for the Republican caucus.
And he went on to say that the majority of representatives wanted to stay over the weekend but were overruled. And because of that, there will be no vote on the floor on Monday. Tuesday will be the earliest. Republican representative out of Oklahoma, Kevin Hern, has announced his candidacy for Speaker. And that is the latest news. Weather and traffic coming up next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Let me tell you, if I could, about Everseal. This is a tremendous product. It's a sealant basically for exterior wood and concrete. And there's a lot of things out there that you can use, but this is different. This is way better. It's technology that's been around for ages, was used in industrial applications for years, until the folks at Everseal figured out how to provide this permanent solution for sealing your exterior wood and concrete at a price that home and business owners can actually afford. First thing they do is they come out and they do a deep cleaning all the way down to make your wood and concrete look just as good as it possibly can look. And then they apply their patented sealant, which absorbs all the way through to become a permanent part of your wood and concrete, and it will prevent any further deterioration for the next 30 to 50 years. I said 30 to 50 years, not making that up. Now think about that. Think about all the time you will save. Think about all the money you will save not having to do this year after year after year after year like everybody else does. Yeah, this is a good solution. And if it sounds like something that would work for you, and I can't imagine why you wouldn't be interested, why don't you reach out to Steve Nelson and the team over at Everseal? They could give you all the answers you may have and give you more details. 844-EVER-USA. That's 844-EVER-USA. Did I mention it even works on brand new construction just as well as old stuff? And if you want to learn more, just go to the website, ever-seal.com. Forty minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk. I'm Brian Wilson, and this is The Drive for Friday. It's Friday, and not a day too soon, man. I'm ready for a weekend. This week, the news has worn me to a nub, and I'm I'm sort of ready for a break. I hope you are too. Listen, try to take a at some point, you know, when you're listening to the news, you just got to take a deep breath and maybe walk away for a bit. Try to catch some fresh air. Try to, do something other than, just watch endlessly what's going on, because, the story that we have with the speaker thing, nothing can happen until next Tuesday. And as far as Israel's concerned, that is a story that has sort of a repeating, it's more of the same every day, and it can be a lot to look at. So I hope you'll take an opportunity for your own mental health and for the welfare of those around you to sort of turn off maybe the TV for a little bit this weekend and try to, enjoy life. Try to find something that is diverting. I'm going to do that for sure. I think my weekend is going to involve power washing. Apparently I got my honeydew list today, and power washing is very high on the list. So, okay. Crank it up. Clean it up. We're going to take you back to the swamp, though, for some other things. You know, last night the President of the United States gave an Oval Office address, only his second Oval Office address since he became president, and that is considered the bully pulpit. That's considered, you know, you come to the American people from the Oval Office, that's a serious speech. And so it did take place last night, and basically it was all about, I need more money. He wants to send to Congress an emergency request for funding and to the tune of $100 billion. I got this note from Senator Marsha Blackburn. She's had a chance to look at what the Biden administration has sent over. So I think it's actually $106 billion. Biden is sending a $100 billion emergency funding request to Congress, she says, but only $10 billion of that is allocated for Israel. There is an immediate responsibility on Congress to make sure Israel has what it needs to defend itself and to hold that aid hostage by linking it with a myriad of other issues, including bailout for sanctuary cities and more money for Ukraine, is irresponsible. And he did tie those things together. The separate funding request should be considered as such. You know, let's do bring them up separately. Do not bring them up together. They should not stand as one bill. That's sort of what happens with an omnibus bill. You just throw a bunch of stuff together and hope that people buy. And they put a $6 billion sweetener in there in the form of money to help secure the border. Well, talk about being a day late and a dollar short. Where was that money when we could have done some good for this country? Instead of allowing 1.7 million known gotaways to come into this country, and maybe a total of as many 7 million people who've come into this country since Joe Biden took office illegally. They came in the country illegally. And for some reason, they are given a pass and a piece of paper and a ticket to wherever they want to go. And now that they're here, the stories that I saw the other day that really made me angry was how much money that the Biden administration is now prepared to spend to support them for things that you and I have to pay for. You and I have to pay for medical care. You and I have to pay if we want to, have housing over our head. And now they're going to get money, I think it's millions and millions of dollars are now being given to the people who came here illegally by the Biden administration. I'm telling you. It just isn't right to do that for people who violated the law. What about the people who came to this country and went through the proper process? You don't do that for them. It's messed up, man. That's all I can tell you. So take what you got here for Israel. Vote on that. If you want to ask for more money for Ukraine, ask for that separately. If you need more money for Taiwan, ask for that separately. Of course, that would require that we have a House of Representatives that is functioning, which we don't. But, still, don't just lump it all together. That's the road to ruin. The Biden administration, according to the Daily Fetched, which I find some good stuff on that website. I didn't know about the Daily Fetched until recently, and I keep finding really, really juicy stories there. The Biden administration wants pornographic content to remain in school libraries. The House Committee on Education and the Workforce held a subcommittee hearing on Thursday. Yeah, they're still having hearings to discuss explicit content found in the books in children's school libraries. In what many on the left claim is an epidemic of book banning, it is actually an epidemic of pornographic books being distributed to American school libraries, according to witnesses at the House hearing. Early Childhood, Elementary, and Secondary Education Subcommittee Chairman Representative Alan Bean, a Republican of Florida, said the hearing was necessary. Some of my Democrat colleagues will inevitably accuse Republicans of engaging in a widespread campaign to ban books because of racial animus or prejudice against LGBT students, Bean said in the opening statement. However, none of the evidence suggests that books are being removed for any reason other than inappropriate, explicit content. And he's right. He's right. Bean said that the truth is the books that have been called into question are so obscene that reading passages from them has led to adults being censored in adult forums. He cited two explicit books in particular. School boards officials in Clay County, Florida, had to cut a father's microphone for reading Lucky for fear that the explicit passages would violate FCC laws and regulations since the school board meeting was being televised. Late-night television refused to air an ad featuring language from Gender Queer, another book that's out there. Bean said that this is an issue that reaches the federal level because the Biden administration is trying to deprive states and local districts of the right to determine what's appropriate or inappropriate for their schools' library shelves. This is why I really love the idea that we're contemplating here in Tennessee of saying, we've got a little money in the bank, we've got a little surplus built up. Why don't we take the federal money that we get that has all these strings attached to it, and let's just forego taking it. We say we're not going to take any more of that money. We'll replace it with money from our budget so we don't have to go forward with education money that has a bunch of strings attached to it that we don't agree with. I love that idea. I really do love that idea. I think it's a good one. Also, there is growing pressure in the swamp for the censure and potential expulsion of Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey, who's facing a new wave of bribery allegations. The Washington-based National Legal and Policy Center is the first to ask the panel to act on its authority to dump the senator who was slapped by the panel in a 2018 fraud case that ended in a hung jury. This, according to the Washington Examiner, he should be expelled from the Senate, the ethics group said. Menendez and his wife were indicted recently for bribery. A new charge added to the case claimed his wife, Nadine Arslanian Menendez, and a third defendant conspired to use the senator as an agent of Egypt. His wife and other defendant pleaded not guilty this week. The senator said he would show that he is innocent of the charges. He has been taken away. He's been taken out of his committee, which was Foreign Relations. He was the chairman, and they said you can't be the chairman. The other day there was a big briefing on the Middle East, and he was told you cannot come, given these concerns that you're acting as an agent of Egypt. His wife and other defendants pleaded not guilty. And as I said, the senator said he would show he is innocent of the charges. The initial indictment was a tale out of The Godfather and included charges of receiving gold bars and nearly $500,000 in cash bribes allegedly stuffed into the senator's clothes. In its letter, provided to secrets and posted here on this article, the NLPC said the committee should open its own investigation and not defer to the courts and prosecutors. I think that's right. But you know what? Democrats have such a thin margin in the House, in the Senate, that they don't want to lose the Democrat vote they have there. They probably would expel him if it weren't for the fact that it makes a lot of votes uncomfortably close for Democrats. So they're not going to do what they should be doing and get rid of Menendez, unless he is found not guilty by a court of law. He pretty much needs to go do something else. It is now 50 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. When we come back, we'll hear what's going on with the markets. A lot of activity there today. You're listening to The Drive on Super Talk.
One of the big words being thrown around in the investing world right now is this one. You may have heard it. Fiduciary. The idea that the investment advisor has to keep your interest first when they give advice. Now, it's being used in a marketing sense right now, and one of the things that I found fascinating, there was a study by the University of Southern California and Indiana University. They looked at investment advisor portfolios, and they found that they were making basic academic mistakes in the management of their own portfolios. And the question that they asked was, if they can't even keep their own best interest first, how are they going to keep your best interest first? That was the question. Now, one of the things that we do at Paul Winkler Inc. is every one of our offices, 10 offices, is run by a degreed planner, number one. But we go way beyond the call of duty when it comes to fiduciary and making sure that we're using academically sound principles in investing. Evidence-based. In other words, a lot of this is backed by Nobel Prize winning research. To learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615 851-1950.
The latest on the Israel-Hamas war, Andy Ogles on WTN talking about why Jim Jordan is out as the speaker-elect. And written Nashville, It's going up. Those stories and more coming up 4 o'clock right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, let's take a look at the markets. Not a great day on the major indices. The Dow Jones Industrials down 286 points. The S&P down 53. That's about 1.25%. NASDAQ down 202 points. That's about 1.5%. So not really good numbers there. The bond markets are doing a little better. The 10-year bond rose to almost 5%. It's at just under 5% now, and I think it was above 5% for a short time today. Gold is really getting expensive. It's up again today, $11.40. An ounce of gold will cost you $1,991.90. And so oil is also up there. And that's another thing that's driving the market. Standing by with more details on that is John Maxon from Beacon Capital Management. Hello, John.
Hey, Brian. Yeah, you're exactly right. This message that Chairman Powell came out with higher rates for longer is really messing with the bond market. Having that 10-year hover around 5%, that's a big deal. And oil ended today just a little bit below $90 a barrel, but it's up for the second consecutive week, and it's up about 2% this week and right at about $90 a barrel. And the Middle East conflict is continuing to put upward pressure on oil. And the concern remains, of course, that the conflict there is going to expand into a wider conflict. And so with everything that's happening, you look at the VIX and the fear gauge is up. Next week, we get some tech stock earnings. Hopefully that will give us a better gauge on where the economy is headed. But oil is a big deal right now.
All right. Thank you very much, John Max. And to learn about all the things they can do for you at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. It is 58 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock.
Four o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories right now. 73 degrees and a breezy one in Music City. Complete weather and traffic report coming up in 5 minutes. All the latest on the war between Israel and Hamas with Michelle Franson.
A glimmer of hope in the wake of the Hamas attacks. 2 Americans, a mother and daughter, held hostage in Gaza, released today by Hamas. Israeli officials say Judith Renan and her daughter, 17-year-old Natalie, are now being cared for by the Red Cross. No other details have been released about their condition. Secretary of State Antony Blinken credited Qatar for brokering the hostage release with Hamas, but offered few details as the U.S. works to get other Americans released.
The urgent work to free every single American, to free all other hostages, continues, as does our work to secure the safe passage out of Gaza for the Americans who are trapped there.
Growing calls also for the U.S. to do more to help Palestinians. Humanitarian aid expected to flow into the southern border crossing with Egypt sometime this weekend. Israeli forces also standing by, ready to move into Gaza for a possible ground offensive.
There's a new funding request from the Biden administration in this war. It includes $61.4 billion for Ukraine, $14.3 billion for Israel, and $9.15 billion for humanitarian aid, which would be split between Gaza, Ukraine, and Israel. And right now in the nation's capital, Tennessee Representative Andy Ogles joined WTN's The Matt Murphy Show to explain exactly how Jim Jordan got voted out amongst his colleagues today after a third ballot failed to elect him as Speaker of the House.
The Speaker pro tem goes up and says, look, we're going to recess and we're going to come back Monday night and we're going to start the candidate forums. Virtually the entire room yelled no. And he said, nope, we're going to go home. We need to take a break. Slow is fast was the phrase, which is just nonsense. And then the question was called. Let's put it to a vote as to whether or not we stay or go. And virtually the entire room called the question, and we were overruled. And because of Robert's Rules of Order, the House rules, essentially, we were gavelled out and sent home for the weekend.
And because of them taking the weekend off on a vote on the floor will not happen until Tuesday morning at the earliest. And Republican representative out of Oklahoma, Kevin Hern, has announced his candidacy for Speaker. Right now in Nashville, rent keeps going up. Rent.com estimates that the average rent in Metro Nashville is $2,165 a month. That same apartment cost about $1,450 a month in 2020, which is a 33% spike in 3 years. Researcher John Leckie tells News 2 what's fueling the increase.
I think you have a lot of people coming in from outside of Nashville, coming from places, from those more expensive regions, coming from your New Yorks, coming from your Los Angeles, places where rents are in some cases double what they typically are in Nashville.
And Leckie says rent will come down as more apartments are built. Right now, rentcafe.com ranks Nashville as the 4th highest rate of apartment construction in the nation. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's time for hour number 2 of the drive on this Friday. That's October 20th. A beautiful day outside, and let's get you home safely so you can enjoy what looks to be a pretty good fall weekend. Yeah, we got all kinds of news that is breaking, and our motto here is when news breaks, we do everything we can to fix it. So we're going to try to do that anyway. Let me just give you a sort of a rundown on some of the stories we're covering. Third time not a charm for Speaker-designate Jim Jordan. He took a vote today. The vote went further in the wrong direction, and Republicans have been sent home for the weekend. Saying we'll try again Monday and Tuesday of next week to see if we can find a speaker. A new document is out, and we will get to this in just a few moments. For my estimation, it's the closest thing we've gotten to a smoking gun document that ties the President of the United States to the shady business dealings of his son and his brother. And we'll talk about that here in just a few moments. And we'll get to our top story, which is what's going on in Israel right now, where we have new developments in the last few hours. Here we go. Let's see what we can find out here. Two American hostages have been released now, and we have their names. They are Judith and Natalie Renan, who were originally taken by Hamas from the Nahal Oz kibbutz in southern Israel near the Gaza Strip. This came as a result of Qatari efforts. In other words, the United States has been working with Qatar, and Qatar has been reaching out to something known as the Al-Qassam Brigades, and they released two Americans, the mother and daughter, for humanitarian reasons, they said, and to prove to the American people that the claims made by the Biden administration and his fascist administration are false and baseless. End of quote. Qassam Brigade spokesman Abu Abada said on Friday, Al-Qassam Brigades is the armed wing of Hamas. So they're trying to get some good positive coverage as the Israelis are literally standing just outside the gates of Gaza and are ready to come in at any time now. As of this morning, there were 11 Americans unaccounted for since Hamas launched the war against Israel on October 7th. All told, though, it is thought that there may be some 203 Israeli hostages that have been taken by Hamas in Gaza. I want to talk to you a little bit more about that. Because as the Israelis have started to do a little work in preparing for their entry into Gaza, they have come across documents that purport to be the handbooks for those who were acting on behalf of Hamas. And let me just read a few things here. Kill the difficult ones. Hamas had a hostage-taking manual. Documents exclusively obtained by NBC News show that Hamas created detailed plans to target elementary schools and a youth center in the Israeli kibbutz of Kfar Saad to kill as many people as possible. So, this was not a spur-of-the-moment decision to kidnap and kill children. It was very much a part of their plan going in. They wanted to target elementary schools. They wanted to target a youth center. They wanted to kill as many people as possible, seize a few hostages, and then move them quickly back into Gaza. That was the attack plan, which are labeled top secret in Arabic. They appear to be orders for two highly trained Hamas units to surround and infiltrate villages and target places where civilians, including children, gather. The Atlantic has a story up about another document used by the Hamas invaders. This is sick stuff. This one gives them instructions on how to kidnap Israelis, including women and children, so that they can be used as human shields. The Atlantic obtained a copy of the manual from an IDF official who vouched for its authenticity, but asked not to be identified because of the sensitivity of the materials. Israeli President Isaac Herzog had earlier referred to the document in an interview on CNN, calling it an instruction guide how to go into civilian areas, into a kibbutz, into a city, and then basically take and torture people. The hostage-taking manual, is meant to happen in the field in areas that have been cleansed and brought under control. And after the hostages are brought together, it said they should be culled. That's right. They should be separated out. And then there's, in parentheses, the following words, and I'm not making this up: kill those expected to resist and those that pose a threat. And the others should be bound and blindfolded, then reassured to keep them docile. Use them as human shields, it says, and use electric shocks to force compliance. Basically, they're shocking these people with cattle prods or with some kind of shocking device. Kill the difficult ones, it adds. Specifically, the notes needed to separate women and children from men. Confirmation that the snatching of children was planned from the start and not the product of some kind of excess fervor following battlefield success. So, sick. Take the children and the women, kill those that look like they're going to be trouble, separate them out, put them in blindfolds, reassure them so that they stay docile, and if they get out of line, shock them with some kind of electrical device. Wow. That's what we're dealing with here in the Middle East. To anybody who says there's a moral equivalency between what's happening, to the people inside Gaza now and what happened to the people inside Israel when Hamas attacked, really, honestly, please. Now, not only do we have about 200 hostages inside Gaza, and maybe as many of them, 11 of them are Americans who have dual citizenship, perhaps many of them. There are about 600 Americans that are inside Gaza that want to get out and are trapped, and they can't get out. Hundreds of American citizens are trapped in the besieged Gaza Strip under constant Israeli bombardment and have received no help finding ways to escape, according to interviews with individuals on the ground. The State Department acknowledges, according to CNBC, that as many as 600 Americans are in the enclave and since October 7th. The Israeli air campaign and full siege against Gaza, which cut off electricity, food, and water to the already blockaded territory, has killed over there about 37, almost 3,800 people. America is not helping us. Biden is not helping us. The embassy is not helping us, said Amir Kaoud, a Palestinian American at the Rafah crossing. The Rafah crossing is the southern crossing, and it's how you get out of Gaza and into Egypt. The other point of entry is the northern border with Israel, known as the Aries Gate. Both are currently closed, and thousands of people are camped out on the southern end of Gaza because that's where the Israelis told them to go, because they're going to come in from the north, and they wanted people who are not combatants to get as far south as possible. Palestinians, some with foreign passports, hoping to cross into Egypt, and others waiting for aid, wait at the Rafah crossing, and it doesn't look like anything is moving there. That is the crossing, by the way, that they'll be bringing in the humanitarian aid. I mean, there is no water, there is no food, there is no medicine. And again, while you may say, well, it's Hamas. Well, not everyone who lives in Gaza is supportive of Hamas. And the people who are not combatants have moved to the far south to stay in some kind of zone that the Israelis will not attack for the moment. And so it seems that those folks don't have food or water. So we're supposed to send in 20 trucks. They were going to be going in today, but apparently the road there is so badly damaged, and for what reason, who did that, I'm not sure, that they're going to have to rebuild the road, and it's going to take about 24 to 48 hours before they can make those roads somewhat passable again. And as soon as that happens, 20 trucks will go in, but they're not letting anybody that's in southern Gaza out into Egypt. So there is that. In the north of Israel, the border is with Lebanon, and the Israelis have evacuated a city that is near the Lebanon border as it begins to attack targets inside Lebanon, because they're afraid that there will be that Lebanon will get into the fray, come across the northern border, and then Israel would have to fight on two fronts. From a strategic standpoint, if that was going to happen, it would be at a time when Israel is occupied down in Gaza, and so they have some forces in the north, and they're softening what they think are military targets inside southern Lebanon, and they're having some effect. And as in fear that this is going to turn into a second front, the Israelis have evacuated a city that is right up against its northern border with Lebanon. And the defense ministry says the following: there will be 3 stages to this attack. We are now in the first stage, a military campaign that includes airstrikes and will later include maneuvering, with the objective of neutralizing terrorists and destroying Hamas infrastructure. The second stage would involve lower intensity operations to root out Hamas operatives, with the third level being an Israeli pullout and the establishment of a new security reality for the citizens of Israel. So what basically people are interpreting this to mean is that look, it's going to get ugly in the early going, and then they will try to make sure that they are separating the wheat from the chaff to get the Hamas people separated from those people who are non-combatants. And I would assume that also means going into the tunnels looking for hostages. The third part says that, well, when we pull out of Gaza, and eventually they will, leaving the place pretty much in ruins, they are telling the Israeli people that we are going to have a different reality. Sort of like America after 9/11, I would suppose, that we have a different way of looking at things post 9/11. And I think that will happen here, in that everybody has said this was Israel's 9/11. 203 hostages, as I said, 20 children under the age of 18, at least 10 people over the age of 60 in that mix. It is now 20 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Coming up, that new document I told you about that, Joe Biden's got some explaining to do with this one. I'll tell you what it is coming up after the break. It's 4:20. Let me tell you about gold. Gold has been used as money for millennia. It's a tried and true store of value and is consistent across generations. Many people have observed that generational wealth can contain 3 different components: land, art, and precious metals. Well, you may not be able to buy some land, and art, well, who knows whether it's good art or bad art. But precious metals like gold, platinum, and silver are practical solutions. Inflation can decrease the value of the money you have. So what about gold? Do you have gold that was given to you? You're not sure what it's worth, or are you just curious about precious metals in general and want to learn more? Well, that's where the folks at Nashville Gold and Coin can help. Gold and silver can be a safe haven during uncertain economic times. You can learn all about the importance of owning precious metals by going to Nashville Gold and Coin. They are always available to discuss your options, educate you on the precious metals market. So do what I did. Go to Nashville's real money source, Nashville Gold and Coin, and set up your appointment by checking out their website, NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
Hey everybody, Dan Mattis with Nashville's Morning News on WTN. I'm here at the Nashville Rescue Mission doing the interviews that I look forward to doing every single year. These are incredible stories of people who have had amazing recoveries. Thanks to this amazing facility, they are able to get clean and lead a more productive life. The date of our annual radiothon is going to be Monday, November 20th. Listen in and please donate. You can get more information at 99.7 WTN, including a link to the website for Nashville's Rescue Mission.
2 American hostages now freed from Hamas. And today's money news, we take a trip on Wall Street, all at 4:30, right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, let me tell you, there's a new document that's out today. I mean, how many times have we heard the President of the United States saying that he didn't know anything about his son's business dealings? He didn't know anything at all.
My business or their business, my sons or daughters. I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings. I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period.
Period. I mean, he was adamant about it. And his spokesperson has gone out there and saying, you know what, this investigation that the Republicans are conducting, there's nothing to it.
And let me just say, it is a no evidence impeachment inquiry. It is baseless. There's no evidence. Even Republicans in Congress have said there's no evidence. It doesn't exist. And so that's the thing that the American people need to also realize. There is nothing there.
Well, okay, is that right? Do they have a point? Well, I'll let you judge. Here is James Comer, who's conducting the investigation in the House Oversight Committee into the business dealings of Hunter Biden, trying to find out if there was money that made its way back to Joe Biden, the big guy. And they found an incredible document and a bunch of new bank records that they've just received.
This summer, Joe Biden said, "Where's the money?" Well, we found some. We're still digging into evidence subpoenaed from bank accounts belonging to Hunter Biden, the son of President Joe Biden, and James and Sarah Biden, the brother and sister-in-law of the president. A document that we're releasing today raises new questions about how President Biden personally benefited from his family's shady influence peddling of his last name and their access to him. Bank records obtained by the House Committee on Oversight have revealed a $200,000 direct payment from James and Sarah Biden to Joe Biden in the form of a personal check. Here's some important context about this check we've obtained in our investigation. In 2018, James Biden received $600,000 in loans from AmeriCorps, a financially distressed and failing rural hospital operator. According to bankruptcy court documents, James Biden received these loans, quote, based upon representations that his last name, Biden, could open doors and that he could obtain a large investment from the Middle East based on his political connections, end quote. On March 1st, 2018, AmeriCorps wired a $200,000 loan into James and Sarah Biden's personal bank account, not their business bank account. And then on the very same day, James Biden wrote a $200,000 check from this same personal bank account to Joe Biden. James Biden wrote this check to Joe Biden as a, quote, loan repayment. AmeriCorps, a distressed company, loaned money to James Biden, who then sent it to Joe Biden. Even if this was a personal loan repayment, it's still troubling that Joe Biden's ability to be paid back by his brother depended on the success of his family's shady financial dealings. Some immediate questions President Biden must answer for the American people. Does he have documents proving he lent such a large sum of money to his brother? And what were the terms of such financial agreement? Did he have similar financial agreements with other family members that led them to make similar large payments to him? And did he know that the same day James Biden wrote him a check for $200,000, James Biden had just received a loan for the exact same amount from business dealings with a company that was in financial distress and failing? The House Oversight Committee will soon announce our next investigative actions and continue to follow the money. The bank records don't end here. There's more to come.
Wow. So here's the thing. James Biden gets a $600,000 loan from a company called AmeriCorps, and AmeriCorps is giving him that money because James Biden, the president's brother, has said, I can help you get some money out of the Middle East because, we'll use the Biden name. They were selling the Biden name. That's influence peddling is what they were doing. And then he took $200,000 and put it immediately into the account of the president of the United States. And he put on the check, and they actually have the check. You can actually see it, signature and all, $200,000 loan repayment. Was it really a loan repayment, or was that just a way to cover up, the payment of money into that account? The president of the United States has got some some questions to answer about that. Wow. Again, I think perhaps the most searing document that I've seen that they've uncovered thus far, and as you heard Comer say, they are still in the process of going through all of the bank accounts, and there may be more that we'll learn in the days ahead. You know, coming up here in just a short while, it is a tradition on our Friday programs, what thing we call Phone Your FARB Friday, your chance to get up on our 100,000-watt soapbox and express yourself. We're going to do that after the news right now, 4:30 on Super Talk 99.7.
30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Right now, 72 degrees and expecting a beautiful weekend this weekend in Middle Tennessee. Full weather forecast. Latest traffic report on the way, 5 minutes. 2 American hostages have been released by Hamas and are back in Israel. But Secretary of State Antony Blinken says 10 Americans remain unaccounted for, and some are among the estimated 200 hostages being held by Hamas. He says the U.S. government will work every minute of every day to secure their release.
But there are still 10 additional Americans who remain unaccounted for in this conflict. We know that some of them are being held hostage by Hamas, along with an estimated 200 other hostages held in Gaza.
And Blinken went on to say, quote, hostages should be released immediately and unconditionally. That's been our condition since day one, and it remains our condition, end quote. Now over to the money news, Michelle Franzen.
Wall Street closing out its worst week in a month with even more losses. The Dow gave up 287 points. The S&P lost 54, and the Nasdaq ended down 202 points. Stocks have been under pressure from the bond market, where the yield on a 10-year Treasury briefly hit 5% Thursday for the first time since 2007. Those high yields make borrowing more expensive. Policymakers in Washington keeping a close watch on the Israel-Hamas war, which could have an impact on the energy market. Spirit Airlines forced to cancel about 100 flights Friday because nearly 24 planes were pulled from service for routine inspections. The Consumer Product Safety Commission is recalling more than 60,000 biometric gun safes because a programming feature can allow unauthorized access. The agency says there have been 39 reports from owners that their safes have been accessed by unauthorized fingerprints.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Specifically regarding precision ag, this is a movement or an initiative that Pheasants and Quail Forever is taking on where we can help farmers take advantage of the data they collect and during harvest, during planting season, and use that to identify areas in the field that are underproducing for whatever reason. Maybe it's shade, water, there's perennial wet spots, odd areas that are just hard to farm. Farm equipment's getting big now, and it's hard to farm some of these smaller areas. And so these areas that the yield isn't high enough to exceed the input costs, we're losing money on those acres. So Are there some alternate land use covers, wildlife covers that we can use and put on the ground that benefit wildlife but also benefit the bottom line? There's a lot of opportunities, a lot of conservation programs and conservation practices out there that can benefit the land and they require management. And so some people might be familiar with the Conservation Reserve Program, or CRP. And that is a program administered by USDA for farmers and landowners to take those certain areas out of production and return them to a wildlife cover beneficial to different wildlife.
We started taking non-productive acres years ago and putting them in CRP, and seeing a great benefit of that, not only for wildlife, but erosion control and the money side of it. You know, we have to make a living to stay in business just like everybody else. You know, if you've got non-productive acres that you're losing money on, and you can get something out of them, plus benefit the soil from erosion, plus benefit the wildlife,
It's 37 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock, hour number 2. We're well underway here on the drive as we get you home on a Friday. Again, we don't have a speaker, and there's no ground war in Israel, but 2 hostages came out today if you're just getting into your car at the bottom of the hour. We'll get back into the major stories of the day in the 5 o'clock hour. But you know what we do on Friday? It's a little thing where we give you a chance to sound off with a thing we call Phone Your FARB Friday. That's right. We want to know what you're thinking. So get on the line at 615-737-9986. Maybe, you have a burr under your saddle, or you got a bee in your bonnet, or maybe there's a bug in a place where I really hope you never, ever have a bug. Just get on the phone. It's a 100,000-watt soapbox. You stand up and say your piece, whatever's on your mind, within boundaries, because it is a family show. I mean, maybe you want to take umbrage. Maybe you got a question. We call that Stump the Chump. You're going to try to stump the chump. Maybe you want to talk about this speaker thing, which is just never seems to come to an end. 615-737-9986. Oh, the phone lines are heating up. We still have one line open, so you have time to get on board. And as we go through some of these calls, you'll get a chance to call in and fill that slot. We'll start, if we could, with Aubrey in the Bureau. Down in the borough, down in Murfreesboro. Aubrey, what's on your mind today?
Brian, I just want to say that I supported Jim Jordan from the beginning to be the speaker, but now that he has withdrawn, I feel like it's a blessing in disguise because he is a fighter. He was doing a wonderful job with the investigations and helping James Comer, and I think that we will get way more out of him there than we would in the resistance of the speaker position.
Well, I don't argue with that. I think that they could have found somebody to step up. I mean, there were a lot of good people on the House Judiciary Committee that he was the chairman of that could have, stood up and continued that investigation. But you're right. He was good to lead that investigation, and he would have been lost in this continuing investigation because he was a great spokesman. Has a great way of synthesizing complicated data and explaining it to people. So yeah, he'll go back to that. I feel bad for him though, because I felt like he was, he really would have been the right choice. And again, you got to realize 194 people think he is the right choice. It's a handful who cannot go along with the idea of Jim Jordan. It's everywhere you look, it's about 15 to 20 people who just can't find can't go along each time they throw somebody up there. Steve in Cookville. Hello, Steve. You're on with Brian on the drive. What do you say, Steve?
Question. How does this affect the line of succession to the presidency? Number one, statement. Is it time to consider an outsider non-elected to the House of Representatives?
Well, that's always been a possibility, and it just would be, who is that person? A lot of people say, well, it's Donald Trump, and I don't know that is going to happen. I don't know that could occur. Could he get 217 votes? That's the question. Who can get 217 votes? And as for the secession, and the way it stands right now, it would be, as I understand it, and this is a complicated thing. It would be the president, the vice president, and then I guess it would be right now the speaker pro tempore, who is Patrick McHenry, would be the person who would then be next in line. And then it goes over to the Senate the Senate pro tem, the person who is the oldest serving member in the Senate. That would be the next person, as I understand it. So I don't know. And then it goes back to the cabinet, and it's a complicated thing. But again, we're in uncharted territory. I don't know what would happen if we actually got there and we had to test that thing. It'd be interesting to know. But thank you for the call. Nick in Franklin. Hello, Nick. You're up with Brian on the drive. What do you say, Nick? What's on your mind today?
Hey, Brian. Thanks for taking my call. I just have two little comments. One, I work in the defense industry and supplying our military, and the last month I've been traveling, visiting with customers, and unfortunately what I've been more and more informed of is that, we as the United States do not have the infrastructure or the resources currently to support any kind of, war with Israel, China, whoever. We're at a very sensitive state, and our potential enemies know that. And then the second aspect is just, it seems like all these conflicts are kind of seeming like they are all, like planned, like in collusion with each other. And my biggest fear is that, Ukraine was a test, Israel's a test. We may see North Korea, starting with South Korea as being a test. And all of that is then going to, convince China of whether or not they need to, start their shenanigans or not.
Well, Nick, you know what I think? I think that that power abhors a vacuum. There's an old saying about politics and how it abhors a vacuum. I think that's what we have here. We have a vacuum in leadership. I mean, the world has looked at Joe Biden, and they have determined, like many of us have, that he's weak. And none of this would be happening if he had not been so unbelievably weak and wrong about withdrawing from Afghanistan. I mean, when the Taliban starts kicking around the United States military and the rest of the world observes that, then, they're emboldened. And it was after that Putin went into Ukraine. And it was after that Xi started making noises about Taiwan again. And it was after that all this, that, and the other has happened around the world. And I think that the Iranians think that they can roll this president. And they're supporting Hamas in a big way. And Hamas has been carrying out bad activities against Israel. So, just like we use the Ukrainians in a proxy war with Russia, Iran is using Hamas as in a proxy war against Israel and by extension, the United States. It all has to do with the weakness of the man in the Oval Office. And what we need, when you have a strong person, okay, take Trump out of it. Okay, look back to the example of Ronald Reagan. When he came into office, Jimmy Carter was the president before him. He was perceived as weak. The Iranians had our hostages. And on the day that Ronald Reagan was sworn into office, the Iranians figured out, you know what, we need to give those hostages back real quick, or we're going to have trouble on our hands, because here comes Reagan. See, he was perceived as strong, where Carter was perceived as weak. When we have a weak president, then our adversaries on the world stage will take advantage of that situation. Thanks for the call, Nick. Ben in Ashland. Ben, you're on with Brian on the drive. What do you say, Ben?
Hey, Brian, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. You're up. Go ahead.
Okay. Hey, well, just want to say love you, mean it. Appreciate everything you do. You're so knowledgeable and courteous to everybody you talk to. I hope you're there forever.
Well, thank you.
I want to talk about the president's speech. I'm so frustrated with this administration, and who in the world thought that it was a good idea for him to announce where and what states that we build our bombs. I'm sure Homeland Security and the military is really happy about that. And I will just hang up and listen to your response.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. I'm more concerned about that picture that he took with Delta forces or I don't know, some kind of military group that's supposed to be very secretive, and they didn't blur out their faces. That one bothers me a lot. I think that most of our adversaries in the world know those kinds of things, actually. I mean, there's no secrets with they know what we've got and where we've got it. The Chinese know where we are with all that stuff. I don't think it's any surprise where we manufacture and build these things. I think it's well known worldwide and not a top secret. But I am concerned about some of the other things that seem to be slipping through the cracks with that regard. Thank you for the call, and thank you for the nice words. Love you, and I mean it, man. Nobody's ever said that to me. Hey, Jill in Franklin. Hello, Jill. Hang on.
Hey,
there you are, Jill. How are you, Jill? What's up? What's on your mind?
Hey. Yeah, just a quick comment on this Republican Party. I've been a Republican for a long time, a conservative for forever. But, it used to be we had a Republican Party and we had a Democratic Party. And now it feels to me as though we have a Democratic Party and we have Republicans and then we have far right Republicans. You know, it's like we don't have just a Republican Party, and it's embarrassing. It's laughable. It's almost laughable if it wasn't so sad.
Yeah, it is sad, and you know, a party, a house against its divided against itself cannot stand. And I look at what's going on right now, and I shake my head. I mean, look, the true difference that Republicans that serve in the House have, probably you couldn't fill up a thimble with them. I mean, they all generally believe the same things. The problem is it's a perception issue. For those members of Congress who are Republicans and come from purple states where they have a tough reelection bid, they fear that choosing somebody like Jim Jordan will come back and bite them, because they'll have to face that 60-second ad. He aligned with Jim Jordan, one of the most conservative people in the House of Representatives, a member of the Freedom Caucus. You know, that's what they'll get. And that's all this is about, really. It's about their efforts to get reelected in a purple state, and it makes them queasy to have a guy like Jim Jordan, a tried and true conservative, as the leader, as House Speaker of the House. I don't know how you're going to find anybody in that body that's acceptable to all sides and all the different factions. And at some point, they're going to have to stop thinking as individuals and start thinking as what's best for the party and best for the country. And I hope that happens soon. I really do. I don't think it will, though. Chad Pergram, who I have a great deal of respect for, says he wouldn't be surprised to see this go several more weeks. Oh, Lord. Let's see. Let's get Bill in from Tullahoma. Bill, you're up on the drive. What's on your mind today, Bill?
Hey, Brian. You know, we're the laughing stock of the world. Can you imagine Russia and China looking at what's going on? We have two guys in leadership in the Senate with Turtleneck and Schumer, and we have a president who can't finish a train of thought, and we have a House that cannot get together and vote a leader. The whole world.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs. And again, this is what happens when we are perceived as weak. Others will take advantage. They will step in and fill that void of leadership in the world. And that's what we're experiencing right now. And I think, as you correctly point out, on several different fronts. Great calls today, guys. You're doing great. If you didn't get through, and I appreciate those who called who didn't get through, we'll do this again in about an hour for round 2 of Phone Your FARB Friday. Right now, 50 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk.
One of the big words being thrown around in the investing world right now is this one. You may have heard it. Fiduciary. The idea that the investment advisor has to keep your interest first when they give advice. Now, it's being used in a marketing sense right now, and one of the things that I found fascinating, there was a study by the University of Southern California and Indiana University. They looked at investment advisor portfolios, and they found that they were making basic academic mistakes in the management of their own portfolios. And the question that they asked was, if they can't even keep their own best interest first, how are they going to keep your best interest first? That was the question. Now, one of the things that we do at Paul Winkler Inc. is every one of our offices, 10 offices, is run by a degreed planner, number one. But we go way beyond the call of duty when it comes to fiduciary and making sure that we're using academically sound principles in investing. Evidence-based. In other words, a lot of this is backed by Nobel Prize winning research. To learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.
Got a traffic problem on Highway 76. 2 American hostages released by Hamas. Jim Jordan out as Speaker-elect. And tomorrow, it's time to band together. The Vols taking on the Tide. Those stories and more coming up. 5 o'clock, Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
According to the Tennessean, we got another bar that's opening up down on Lower Broad in the 400 block of Lower Broadway.
Okay.
This will be a bar that is dedicated to the music and the life and times of Hank Williams Jr.
Nice.
Hank Bocephus. That's right. And so in that block, it'll be Garth Brooks' new bar, which is about to open any day now. Alan Jackson's got a bar there. John Bon Jovi will have a bar there. And yes, Hank Williams Jr.
Dang.
419 Broadway, former location of Nashville Crossroads. And it's right up there next to the former Ernest Tubb Record Shop, which is also undergoing renovation. So, yeah, big stuff happening. He's going to be called the Boogie Bar. But wait a minute. I thought all of Hank's friends had settled down. No, not all of us. It's now 58 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
It is 5 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. A breezy 72 degrees with a beautiful weekend ahead in Middle Tennessee. And looking at some traffic, it looks like lanes are closed on Highway 76 around Bradbury Farms due to a crash. Looks like a utility pole was hit there, so those repairs could take hours. They're recommending alternate routes right now. Complete weather forecast, latest traffic report upcoming in 5 minutes. President Biden reacting to the news of 2 American hostages released by Hamas, Judith Renan and her daughter Natalie Renan. A family member said they were in Israel for a relative's birthday when they were taken hostage. The Israel Defense Forces confirming the 2 women are now with the Red Cross. Their conditions were not immediately clear. Karen Travers has the latest.
President Biden says he is overjoyed 2 American hostages released by Hamas will soon be reunited with their families. He says in a new statement the 2 women and their family will have the full support of the U.S. government as they recover and heal, adding, quote, "We should all respect their privacy in this moment." The president says his administration has been working around the clock to free American citizens taken hostage by Hamas. He thanks the governments of Qatar and Israel for their partnership in this effort. Mr. Biden adding, quote, "Jill and I have been holding close in our hearts all the families of unaccounted for Americans," and says he has no higher priority than the safety of Americans held hostage around the world.
And there's a new funding request from the Biden administration in this war. It includes $61.4 billion for Ukraine, $14.3 billion for Israel, and $9.15 billion for humanitarian aid. And that's split between Gaza, Ukraine, and Israel. And right now in the nation's capital, Jim Jordan, now out of the running for Speaker of the House, stripped of the Republican nomination for the post by a secret vote amongst his colleagues following a third failed ballot on the House floor. Stephen Portnoy has the latest.
It's back to square one for House Republicans, and former Speaker Kevin McCarthy blames it all on those who moved for his ouster earlier this month.
The Crazy Eights, led by Gates, the amount of damage they have done to this party and to this country is insurmountable.
McCarthy didn't answer when asked if he might be interested in running, but the next candidate forum is now set for Monday, which will push the GOP's leadership crisis into a fourth week.
Jordan says, quote, "We need to come together, figure out who our speaker is going to be. I'm going to work as hard as I can to help that individual so that we can go help the American people," end quote. And a thief on the loose in Tennessee. News 2 reports that Brentwood detectives are trying to track down a suspect in multiple auto thefts this week. Officials using evidence in the form of text messages. A Challenger was stolen. 19-year-old Jeremiah Moore's phone pinged at the same exact location around the same time that vehicle was taken. Further evidence reveals that Moore took a photo of the Challenger on his phone. Moore now facing 15 different charges related to the alleged thefts. And we got some sports news. The UT Vols. Tennessee Volunteers going up against their arch rivals, the Alabama Crimson Tide, tomorrow, 2:30 on CBS. The Vols beat the Tide last year at Neyland Stadium with a last-second field goal to win the game 52-49. The 17th-ranked Volunteers look to repeat in this rivalry game for the first time since 2003-2004 against the number 11-ranked Crimson Tide. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, good afternoon. It's 7 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Friday. It's Friday. Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. I'm glad it's Friday. It's been a rough week. A lot to absorb this week, with all that's going on in the Mideast and of course, the Groundhog Day-like experience that we're having on Capitol Hill, where every day is like the day before. And again, if you haven't heard, let me just bring you up to date on a couple of 2 or 3 of the big stories of the day. We always want to make sure that when people are getting into their car at the top of the hour and the bottom of the hour, as they get out of work and they're getting ready to head home, that they have the advantage of knowing what the big stories of the day are. So let me just run through them very quickly. We've gone through them in greater detail in the earlier hours, but number one. In Israel, the ground war has not yet started. There are 2 American hostages that have been released by some of the hostage holders. They said it was a humanitarian gesture, and then they went on to talk about how bad the United States is, the evil United States. But they said they were trying to show good faith. This was negotiated by the Qataris out of Qatar. They were involved in having some discussions on our behalf. And 2, we think there are now either 9 or 11. I think we're now down to 9 American hostages still being held. There are about 600 Americans that are still in Gaza. There are people in Gaza who are Americans, not combatants, who've been trying to get out of the country. Before Israel comes into the north, they're down at the south. And they can't get out, so that situation has not gotten better. The ground war not yet started, but again, we've been saying this for a better part of a week now. Could happen at any time. The green light has been given. Some concern now about the northern border with Lebanon, and the Israelis have actually evacuated a small town that is right up against the Lebanese border, and asked people to get out of there because they fear that once they go into Gaza, that the Hezbollah will come in from the north. And so in advance of that, the Israeli military has had military forces up in the north trying to soften some of the military targets just across the border into Lebanon. The United States, of course, has 2 aircraft carriers in the region, or will have 2 very soon. The Gerald R. Ford and the Dwight Eisenhower battle groups are the Ford is already there. The Eisenhower will be there shortly. There we have it, the latest on what's happening in the Middle East. Now, the other story that we wanted to bring you details on had to do with the third attempt to get Jim Jordan made Speaker. In this particular case, I have to say the third time was not the charm for Jim Jordan. In the first round, he had 200 votes. In the second round, he had 199 votes, and today he had 194. Didn't get there. The magic number is 217, as you know by now. He has lost 25 votes, and it doesn't seem as if those 25 are going to budge. And so what's going to happen? I wish I could tell you. They after that vote went so badly, I'll play out for you how the vote went. Here is the third round vote announced by Speaker pro tempore Patrick McHenry.
The House will come to order. The tellers agree in their tally that the total number of votes cast is 429, of which the Honorable Jim Jordan of the state of Ohio has received 194. The Honorable Hakeem Jeffries of the state of New York has received 210. The Honorable Patrick McHenry of the state of North Carolina has received 6. All right, the House will come to order. The House will come to order. The Honorable Byron Donalds of the state of Florida has received 2. The Honorable Tom Emmer of the state of Minnesota has received 1. Lee Zeldin of the state of New York has received 4. The Honorable Steve Scalise of the state of Louisiana has received 8. The Honorable Mike Garcia of the state of California has received 1. The Honorable Kevin McCarthy of the state of California has received 2. The Honorable Bruce Westerman of the state of Arkansas has received 1. No person having received a majority of the whole number of votes cast by surname, a speaker has not been elected. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the chair declares the House in recess, subject to the call of the chair.
And with that gavel coming down, the Republicans moved back behind closed doors, where Jordan addressed the group of Republicans and said, all right, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to keep my name in there, or do you want me to take my name out? Because it's not going anywhere. And the vote was taken, and I think very sadly, the vote came back that, well, it didn't look like he was going to be able to get there, so let's try something new and different. What that new and different thing is it not at all clear. Not at all clear. So I don't know how they're going to get it resolved. They sent everybody home. There will be no votes over the weekend. They will return on late Monday. They will get behind closed doors again and see if any clarity has come. I don't imagine there's going to be any. And then they will, if there's going to be a vote taken, they will do that on Tuesday. Well, again, it doesn't look like this is going to happen anytime soon, because I don't know who this magic person is that's going to rise from the ashes and suddenly be acceptable to all sides within the very divided Republican caucus in the House of Representatives. So no resolution of that. We still don't have a functional House, and in effect, we don't have a functional Congress. So let's see how that all plays out. That's the latest on that. I want to look at 2020 news. I have a couple of stories that I want to get across the goal line while I got a few minutes here. Former President Trump is winning in key swing states as voters reject the idea of Bidenomics. Well, yes, they certainly have. Listen to this story. There's versions of this, and there are several polls out. Voters in the top 7 swing states are rejecting the Bidenomics message that's central to President Biden's reelection bid, according to a poll out Thursday from Bloomberg News and Morning Consult. Why does this matter? It's important in a presidential election. Isn't national polling, but how the candidates are doing in the swing states. That's right. And they decide the winner, but there aren't many polls that wrap in multiple swing states. Driving the news, the poll, which surveyed 5,000 registered voters this month, found that voters who said the economy was their most important issue disapproved of Biden's economic policies 65-14. Whew, that's brutal. So how's that Bidenomics working out for you? I mean, you ask the president, and he says, it's working. And we have it right here, he says it every time.
It's working.
It's working. 51% of swing state voters said the national economy was better off under former President Trump. Overall, just 26% of voters in the poll said that Bidenomics has been good for the economy. 49% disapproved of his policies. Biden campaign spokesman Kevin Munoz downplayed the findings in a statement provided to Axios. Predictions more than a year out tend to look a little different a year later. We will win in 2024, they say, by putting our heads down and doing the work, not by fretting about a poll. Okay, you hold on to that. The big picture, former President Trump leads Biden 47-43% in the 7-state poll with a margin of error of 1 percentage point. The polls covered Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, the top 7 swing states heading into the 2024 campaign. This according to the Cook Political Report. I think that's important to note. I mean, look, again, the Biden people are right. It's a year out. But they are wrong when they say that, Bidenomics is working. I mean, I don't know how many times you can say it.
It's working.
It's not working. And most people realize that. They know that it's not.
Financial Times and the Wall Street Journal, have heard me say it before, started calling my plan Bidenomics. It's about investing in America and investing in Americans.
Mm-hmm.
It's working.
It's not working. Meanwhile, the National Republican Congressional Committee announced a record-breaking fundraising haul today, marking the committee's best presidential cycle off year during the third quarter and the highest September numbers during a presidential cycle off year. The NRCC raised $9.3 million in September and brought in a total of $18.5 million for the third fundraising quarter of the year, an historic high for the committee. So, the NRCC will be well funded. The latest numbers show a sharp increase from August fundraising, when the NRCC reported only $3.8 million being brought in. That was the lowest performing month this year. House Republicans in competitive districts have been dominating their Democratic counterparts in terms of fundraising for the 2024 race, according to recent filings with the Federal Election Commission. Analysis across multiple platforms indicates among the Republicans whose House seats have seen as toss-up that GOP candidates have more cash on hand than their Democrat opponents, that being very important. Money, the mother's milk of politics. Cher says, yes, I'm talking Cher. The singer Cher, remember her? Yeah, she's still alive. Cher says she'll leave the United States if Trump retakes the White House in 2024. She said, I almost got an ulcer the last time. Poor thing. Actress and singer tweeted in 2015 that she would move to Jupiter if Trump won. Sadly, she did not. She still hung around. But she says if Donald Trump defeats President Biden in next year's election, I don't know, I will leave the United States. I wonder what Sonny would say about that. He was, by the way, a Republican. Cher, don't let the door hit you on the way out, babe. It is 20 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Okay, you've heard me talk about this before. United Structural Systems, when it comes to large home repairs, we're talking about things like waterproofing or foundation repair. You really don't understand this, the way they do. I mean, let's be honest about it. You're bright and you're smart and all that, but you're probably not an engineer, not a structural engineer, and you probably haven't done a lot of this. So you need somebody who's going to give it to you straight. And for my money, that would be USS. Good people, honest people. Here's the fact. It could be something big that needs to be fixed. It could also be a small problem that will become bigger if you don't fix it now. Or it could be nothing at all, and that kind of good news does come on occasion. Bottom line is you need advice, and the folks at USS can provide it. 25,000 satisfied residential customers. And listen, the people who have worked with them have nothing but rave reviews. Gloria said, I want to say, first off, hats to the crew for their hard, excellent work. I was very pleased with the work they did. They did not leave any mess to be cleaned. Actually, you could not even tell they had been there. It's good, hard workers that make me love USS, and I tell everyone about your excellent customer service and work. Thank you for the respect your guys showed me. They were truly like a breath of fresh air. Listen, USS, they guarantee their best, serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama, online at USSTN.com, or call this number, 615-488-7855.
Hey everybody, Dan Mattis with Nashville's Morning News on WTN. I'm here at the Nashville Rescue Mission doing the interviews that I look forward to doing every single year. These are incredible stories of people who have had amazing recoveries. Thanks to this amazing facility, they are able to get clean and lead a more productive life. The date of our annual radiothon is going to be Monday, November 20th. Listen in and please donate. You can get more information at 99.7 WTN, including a link to the website for Nashville's Rescue Mission.
2 hostages released by Hamas. Andy Ogles fills us in on the latest in the House of Representatives. Those stories coming up 30 minutes after the hour of 5 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey right here on Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
Are you ready for a little sports news? I am. It's time for Mac Morris to give us that information.
The globe to bring you the constant variety of sport.
The
thrill of victory. And the agony of defeat.
That's right. It's time for Mac Morey's wide world of sports. And now here is the host of our program. You know him, you love him. You can't live without him. It's the one, the only, Mac Morey, ladies and gentlemen.
Woo! Hello. Oh, there's the crowd. Nice.
It's a small crowd today.
Small crowd today.
But vocal crowd.
Well, that's fine.
A small but enthusiastic band of supporters.
There it is, the stinger.
All right, Mac, what's on tap for today?
Well, I would be absolutely remiss, Brian. I'd be remiss if I did not talk about the biggest rivalry in all of college football. Mason, hit it for me, please. Yes, sir. That is right. The Tennessee Volunteers are traveling to Alabama to take on the Crimson Tide, and it's gonna be it's gonna be a fun one here. This is one of the most heated rivalries in all of sports, and it regained that friction and that pure good hearted sports hatred last year because the Tennessee Volunteers regained that crown. They were the one that got to stick that cigar in after a win, 52-49, a last-second field goal last year. One of the best games I'd seen in a long time. Obviously, I'm biased. And so now this will be the first time that the Vols can repeat in a win like this against Alabama since 2003 and 2004. I mean, it was 17, 18 straight time, almost 20 straight times that Alabama beat Tennessee. Tennessee took that over, stopped that streak last year. They look to now start a streak of their own. 17th ranked Vols traveling to face a number 11 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. And this is an Alabama team that isn't as dominant as we've seen in the past. They do have a loss on their record, and the offense has had some struggles here, Brian. I mean, they've got a quarterback in Jalen Milroe that was benched early on in the season. He started the year, this new guy, and he gets benched for Ty Simpson and Tyler Buckner. I mean, Nick Saban was trying anything under center because the offense was just not coming together at all. So Milroe is now back in at starting quarterback, and he started to find that flow a little bit. But still, I mean, these numbers aren't eye-popping. 11 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Milroe is known to make mistakes. He's athletic. He likes to use his legs. So the Tennessee Vols are going to have to be containing Jalen Milroe at quarterback. But if they can get him outside the pocket, pressure him, and force him to throw the football, that's going to be great. That's going to be great. And this is a Tennessee secondary that likes to fly around. So force Milroe to make some mistakes early on and let the Tennessee Volunteers go out and do what they like to do, which is score some points.
These scramblers, they do well in college. I mean, this is a little bit off topic, but I'm curious, why do you think it is that the people who are scramblers, who do so well in college, do not do well when they get to the NFL?
Bigger, faster, stronger. It's just at college you have the ability to, at a quarterback level, be a little bit, faster and quicker. And those linebackers, those cornerbacks, those safeties at the next level are faster, stronger than you, and they're ready to hit you. And so in college, those guys may be able to catch you, but they're not really hurting you. And now at that next level, they're injuring you, and you're not sliding in time because you think you have that extra second till you need to slide. At the NFL on Sundays, that second's gone, and you're being plastered to the turf.
I guess that's true. Yeah. Listen, I love your enthusiasm for your Volunteers.
Thank you.
But I feel like it's my job here to bring a little reality to the conversation.
Okay.
How many times has Tennessee beat Alabama in the past 20 years?
Once.
I have the answer. Do you know the answer?
Is it once?
4 times.
4. Okay, good.
4 out of 20. So 1 every 20% of the time.
I say, okay, good.
Yeah.
I like that. That's not good.
No.
That's not good. No, you're right. You're right. Listen.
Well, Saban, he's just a beast. He just knows how to put together. He's a great coach, and he knows how to put together a good team, and he knows how to coach that team, and he knows, he hasn't survived as long as he has by being a slouch. That's for sure.
No, he's got his guys ready. And listen, this is now a team with some motivation, right? A lot of the time, if you're a team like Alabama or Georgia, you're kind of scrapping for bulletin board material, right? You're at the top of the top. But this is a game where Bama doesn't need to scrap for anything. They've got the material. They lost to this team last season. It's rare where Saban gets to go into a locker room before a game and go, you know what? They kicked our you-know-whats last season, and now it's time to gain that revenge. And that's what Bama's got, and they've got it. That's scary for Nick Saban to have that for his guys. But, Josh Heupel's got, some version of that on his end in his locker room going, you know what, guys? We haven't started a streak against this team in almost 20 years, since 2003 and since 2004. It's been since we've beaten them two consecutive times. Let's make it happen. And the Vols have a quarterback under center in Joe Milton, who's also prone to some mistake making, hasn't really lived up to the hype in this offseason that he received. So looking for Milton to have a day and turn the tide, no pun intended.
That was a bad pun. Well, the kickoff is 2:30 Central on CBS, I'm told.
Yes, sir. It's going to be exciting.
All right. Well, there you go, and that's our news. Now it's time for Mac to take off his news hat and to put on his sports hat and put on his news hat. I'm sorry, it's Friday and I'm getting tired.
I get you.
Here's the news with Mac Morey.
.531, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 70 degrees and sunny on Music Row. Full weather forecast. Latest traffic report on the way. 5 minutes. Renewed hope in the search for dozens of hostages abducted during the October 7th terror attacks on Israel. 2 American hostages have been released by Hamas back in Israel. Matt Gutman in Tel Aviv has seen new pictures of the mother and daughter.
They look physically healthy, but they will undergo a pretty extensive medical checkup. That's the first thing that they will likely do. I've spoken to a hostage who was released by Al-Qaeda earlier this year, and interrogators, questioners will want to know things like, who were they with in terms of hostages? What languages did they hear while they were in there? Did they get a sense of where they were? Were there any particular smells? What kind of cell were they in? Who were their captors? Were there young people, old people? Did they seem like veteran fighters or sort of like back-end guards?
And there's a new funding request from the Biden administration regarding these foreign affairs. $61.4 billion for Ukraine, $14.3 billion for Israel, and $9.15 billion for humanitarian aid, which would be split between Gaza, Ukraine, and Israel. And Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn is among GOP leaders who sent a letter to Congress yesterday advising against any aid to Ukraine. Right now in the nation's capital, Tennessee Representative Andy Ogles joined WTN's The Matt Murphy Show, explained how the closed-door meeting that ended Jim Jordan's run at Speaker was conducted today.
Let's say there's 3 candidates running for Speaker in conference. You hold a vote, and if no one gets 50% plus 1, the lesser vote-getting candidate drops off, so it goes from 3 candidates to 2. The 2 candidates go head-to-head. Whichever one of those gets 50% plus 1, they become the Speaker designee, which means they're the candidate, the chosen candidate for the House floor. But what happened was they held that secret ballot to essentially remove him as the chosen candidate for the Republican caucus.
And he went on to say that the majority of representatives wanted to stay over the weekend but were overruled. Because of that, there will be no vote on the floor on Monday, Tuesday at the earliest. And Republican representative out of Oklahoma, Kevin Hern, has announced his candidacy for Speaker. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Specifically regarding precision ag, this is a movement or an initiative that Pheasants and Quail Feathers taken on where we can help farmers take advantage of the data they collect and during harvest, during planting season, and use that to identify areas in the field that are underproducing for whatever reason. Maybe it's shade, water, there's perennial wet spots, odd areas that are just hard to farm. Farm equipment's getting big now, and it's hard to farm some of these smaller areas. And so these areas that the yield isn't high enough to exceed the input costs, we're losing money on those acres. So Are there some alternate land use covers, wildlife covers that we can use and put on the ground that benefit wildlife but also benefit the bottom line? There's a lot of opportunities, a lot of conservation programs and conservation practices out there that can benefit the land, and they require management. And so some people might be familiar with the Conservation Reserve Program, or CRP. And that is a program administered by USDA for farmers and landowners to take those certain areas out of production and return them to a wildlife cover beneficial to different wildlife.
We started taking non-productive acres years ago and putting them in CRP, and seeing a great benefit of that, not only for wildlife, but erosion control and the money side of it. You know, we have to make a living to stay in business just like everybody else. You know, if you've got non-productive acres that you're losing money on, and you can get something out.
All right, let me tell you about Busy Bee. I mean, you know about them. They've been around forever. I mean, if you have a problem with your air conditioning or your heating or your plumbing, they're the number that you should call, 615-775-7833, and they will buzz right over to your house. And this time of year, you really can't have a problem with either your heating or your air conditioning because you really need both. I mean, in the daytime, it gets a little warmish, so you turn on the AC. At nighttime, it gets a little cold, you turn on the heat. And if it doesn't work right, just pick up the phone and call that number. And I say they'll be right over in pretty short order to see if they can get you back up and running. Now, the way you avoid having problems is to do preventative maintenance, and that's what the Beehive Club is all about. Starts as little as $99. You get 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems, one aimed at heating and one that's aimed at cooling, another aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges 24/7. 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, your official Rude Pro partner. For satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 615-775-7833, online at busybeehvac.com. Hey, guess what? It's that time. I love this part of the show. I love this part of the week. It's a chance for you to sound off and express yourself. We do it at 4:35 and 5:35. A little thing we like to call Phone Your FARB Friday. I know. What are you thinking? I mean, let's get it off your chest. Tell me what's on your mind. I mean, a lot of people have been trying to weigh in today about this stupid speaker thing. but maybe you have some thought about other things as well. 615-737-9986. I mean, if you have a bee in your bonnet, if you have a burr in your saddle, under your saddle, if you have a bug in a place where I hope that you never, ever have a bug, well, just get on that soapbox, that 100,000-watt soapbox, and get it off your chest. Tell us what's on your mind. Within boundaries, just about anything goes because, well, we are a family show, and I don't want Mason to have to use the little red button today. Again, that's 615-737-9986. Maybe you want to take umbrage with something you heard me say. Maybe you want to ask a question. Maybe you want to try to stump the chump. It happens now and then. 615-737-9986. Got a lot of phone lines open and a lot of time to fill here. So if you're a first-time caller, we love that. Get on it. Again, 615-737-9986. Let me start with David up at the top there, if I could. David, calling in from Nashville. David, you're on with Brian on the drive. What's on your mind today, David? Hello, David. David.
Hey, Brian. Thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it.
No problem.
I'm really curious why Donald Trump, being the head of the GOP, is not spending more time trying to find a speaker. It doesn't seem like he's given a lot of time to that. Is there a reason for that?
Well, it's really a function of what happens in the House. Now, I mean, that he said at one point, I think, that if they needed him to step up on for a short-term basis, that he would be willing perhaps to consider that. But then that seemed to go by the wayside. And, it is possible to pick somebody from outside the House of Representatives to be Speaker. It's not a requirement, although it's never happened. And a lot of people say, well, the reason it hasn't happened is, it might be challenged in a court of law. Nobody wants to go down that path but we are really in sort of weird territory here, sort of uncharted territory. I think he can help by either, adding his endorsement to whoever is chosen. But remember, a part of the problem here is that you got a series of moderate Republicans. They're probably not Trump's biggest fan to begin with. And an endorsement by Trump really doesn't help with about those 20. Remember, you got to get 221 Republicans. You got to get 217 votes. So if you lose 4 votes, that's not going to work. That's how tight these margins are right now in the House of Representatives. He has gotten into it in some ways. I think he was a big supporter of Jordan and really wanted him to get across the goal line. But as we've told you today, that's not going to happen. Jim Jordan's name has been withdrawn, and they're going to try to again on Monday to find somebody else to put up and see if they can get to 217. Mac in South Pittsburgh, you're on with Brian on the drive. Mac, hello. What do you think about all this?
Hey, Brian, enjoying your show.
Thank you.
We the people, we elect the first in command and the second in command, and I need you to school me as to why we can't bypass all the bureaucratic bullcrap and let we the people vote for the third in command.
Which would be the Speaker, is what you're suggesting.
Exactly.
Well, listen, if that were the case, then it would be a majority rule, and I think Jim Jordan would win. See, the thing I'm getting more and more angry about here, Mac, is with the vacate 8, who started this whole mess without a plan for, how you're going to end it. What's plan B? Okay, so plan A was get rid of McCarthy. What's your plan B to replace him? They just were angry. And if you believe Kevin McCarthy, and I think there's something to it, this was personal between him and Matt Gaetz. And really, this was probably going to happen one way or the other eventually, given that stupid rule that they agreed to that said any one person can call for a vacation of the seat. And that would mean that they would have to take a vote. And because margins are so thin, if you can find 3 other people to join you, 3 other malcontents with their nose out of joint, then you can kick out the Speaker. And if they don't change that rule, it's going to happen again and again and again. Dahlia is calling in from Nashville. Dahlia, am I saying that right? What's on your mind today?
Hi, it's Dahlia.
Okay.
Close enough. The painted lady of the garden, you know. I got a scatter shot here. Congress, on the speaker's race, you guys put your big boy pants on and get it done. Quit fooling around. I'll keep it clean. Biden's speech last night, idiot, dumb, oatmeal brains. Go ahead and tell everybody where our stuff is, and that, no, we're not sending money, we're sending armaments so we can buy more armaments with the money. Dumb, dumb, dumb.
All right. All right, Dahlia, thank you so much. Greatly appreciated. Thank you for giving us a call and speaking your mind. Nathan in Smyrna. Nathan, good afternoon. You're on with Brian on the Drive. Nathan, what's your thought today?
Hi, Brian. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on, I hear a lot of people, they want to, lay the blame for all the unrest in the world at the feet of Joe Biden. I don't think that's quite fair. I mean, I don't like him. I didn't vote for him. I think he's a horrible president. But what's been going on here has been decades in the making. I mean, the Cold War ended. We had a 600-ship Navy. We're now down to about 290. We barely have the dry dock infrastructure to keep those ships repaired and, turned around and on deployment. It's the reason we only have 100 and some odd F-22 Raptors because, you don't need F-22s to fight terrorists living in caves. We've reconfigured our military thinking, it's the end of history, like they used to say. Nobody's ever going to fight big wars anymore, and our enemies are looking at Europe, too, and what they've done, practically disarming themselves, like in the case of Germany. So it's just not all his fault,
So your larger point is that we are no longer the threat militarily that we once were.
We're not the deterrent we once were. Our destroyers are busy escorting aircraft carriers for the most part.
Yeah.
We don't have enough numbers to patrol and secure and keep safe global trade lanes. It's a problem. So it's been a long time in the making, and just replacing Joe Biden is not going to fix the problem. The problem requires a much longer-term plan and solution, like building up infrastructure, the merchant marine, dry dock space, and getting the numbers up. Basically.
Well, I don't quibble with your point that we've let our military and our deterrent capability militarily go into decline. I mean, what was it that Reagan used to say? Peace through strength. If you are perceived as an overwhelming adversary, then you don't have problems. You know what I'm saying? And nobody's going to touch you because they know that you could just clean their clock. But it also, I think, has to do with the rise of China. China is a more formidable opponent than it was, 10 or 20 years ago. Russia has turned out to be not as formidable as an opponent as we thought they might be. But you got to have nuclear deterrent. You've got to have naval power. And I think you're right. We need to focus more on the kinds of wars that we're fighting, which are almost all asymmetrical these days. So, yeah, you're right. We need to come up with plans to go after people who operate out of caves, whether it's in Gaza or in Afghanistan. Thank you for the call. It was a good thought. I like that. Rishi is calling in from Murfreesboro. Rishi, you're on with Brian on the Drive. What's up?
Hey, Brian, I enjoy your show. The thing which I'm kind of concerned about, runaway spending by Biden, and that is very inflationary. I mean, that's great inflation, okay? He said he'll give $60 billion to Ukraine, $10 or $14 billion to Israel for fighting Hamas. I mean, we don't have that kind of money. I mean, we have $33 trillion in debt, and we are accumulating additional $1.5 to $2 trillion every year on top of it.
Yep, I'm with you. I do believe that you're right about that. I mean, we throw around $1 billion like it's nothing these days. I forgot the exact numbers, but this is an approximation. That if you measure 1 million seconds, that's like if you were to count from 1 to 1 million, it would take you 3 days. If you counted to 1 billion, it would take you 11 years to count to 1 billion. So get started right now. We'll check in with you, in about 10 years or so. John in Bethpage. You're on with Brian on the Drive. What's on your mind, John?
Hey, Brian, I just wanted to follow up on that caller before this last one, where he was talking about post-Cold War and how we've gone from 600-something ships to 200. Well, but I served during the Cold War in the Marine Corps during the Reagan years, and I served in the Marine Corps Air Wing. But here's what he didn't include as far as deterrent goes. Yes, we've decreased, but we also have become more observant from the stratosphere during the Reagan years with the space shuttles and all the payloads that they took up that were classified and military defense, all that. We look at our globe a lot closer and a lot more capable than we ever have, in my opinion.
And you think that levels the playing field a little bit, that we don't have to have as many weapons because we have better information?
I think so. I think that they've had to finish the bottom line. Where we once shot bullets out of guns on ships, now we shoot missiles that have to be guided, and so we have that capability versus getting closer where bullets will strike the enemy.
All right. Well, listen, thank you for that, John. That's an interesting thought. Let's go to Linda up in Smyrna. What's happening in Smyrna today, Linda?
A just beautiful day. Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, what's your thought today?
My thought is the reason we can't seem to get a Speaker of the House is because we have three parties. We have the Democrats that are united, we have Republicans, and then we have the true conservatives. And I believe Matt Gaetz is in the right. I believe that we just don't have Republicans that are conservatives anymore. And that's my thought.
Well, I'm not with you on Matt Gaetz. I think that we're in this hole because he had a personal grudge with Kevin McCarthy, and I believe that to be true. I think that's part of why he got his nose out of joint, and he found a few people to go with him. I don't want to be in a situation where 4% of the people dictate to the other 96% the way things should go. And we should never have allowed that stupid rule to be in place. That's the first mistake. It was always going to happen eventually once that rule was there. But honestly, I believe when 96% of the people who are, were supportive of McCarthy and did not want to see him removed as Speaker, it was only 4%, including Matt Gaetz. So I can't be with you about Matt Gaetz these days. I'm sorry. I haven't always felt that way about Matt Gaetz, and maybe my position will change. It is 53 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk. Let me talk to you about D.T. McCall and Sons, a company that's been around in Middle Tennessee for more than 100 years. Now, how do you do that? How do you survive that long in business? I think it has a lot to do with the kind of way you operate your business. If you operate it with integrity and you treat people right, then you stay in business and you succeed. And if you don't, then you don't. Well, D.T. McCall's and company, they have a company where they will give you a lot of respect. When you go in there, you're going to find knowledgeable people and a huge selection, and they'll give you a good price, and then you don't pay extra for delivery or setup or haul away. You don't pay extra for the cords and hoses that you need to make the ding-dang thing work. And so, that's the kind of reputation they have. They give you a good price, and it's an honest price, not like the games they play at some of the big box stores. Whenever possible, D.T. McCall sells products that are made and manufactured in Middle Tennessee, and that means you're supporting local Tennessee manufacturers and workers when you shop at D.T. McCall's. 5 convenient locations, great selection of appliances, furniture, anything you need for your house. Find out more by going to their website, dtmccalls.com.
One of the big words being thrown around in the investing world right now is this one. You may have heard it. Fiduciary. The idea that the investment advisor has to keep your interest first when they give advice. Now, it's being used in a marketing sense right now, and one of the things that I found fascinating, there was a study by the University of Southern California and Indiana University. They looked at investment advisor portfolios and they found that they were making basic academic mistakes in the management of their own portfolios. And the question that they asked was, if they can't even keep their own best interest first, how are they going to keep your best interest first? That was the question. Now, one of the things that we do at Paul Winkler Inc. is every one of our offices, 10 offices, is run by a degreed planner, number one. But we go way beyond the call of duty when it comes to fiduciary and making sure that we're using academically sound principles in investing. Evidence-based. In other words, it's backed by a lot of this is backed by Nobel Prize winning research. To learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.
It's 6 o'clock. I'm John Michael with your top stories. 69 and sunny on Music Road, and a beautiful weekend is coming. The forecast and the latest traffic report are upcoming as well. All the latest on the war between Israel and Hamas with Chuck Silverstein.
Freed by Hamas, now back in Israel, 2 American hostages, mother and daughter. As far as what's next, investigators will be questioning them about things like, did they see anybody who looked like leaders? That according to ABC's Matt Gutman in Tel Aviv.
They look physically healthy, but they will undergo a pretty extensive medical checkup. That's the first thing that they will likely do. I've spoken to a hostage who was released by al-Qaeda earlier this year, and interrogators, questioners will want to know things like, who were they with in terms of hostages? What languages did they hear while they were in there? Did they get a sense of where they were? Were there any particular smells? What kind of cell were they in? Who were their captors? Were there young people, old people? Did they seem like veteran fighters or sort of like back-end guards?
There's fighting between Israel and militants in neighboring Lebanon to the north, and there are evacuations in Lebanese and Israeli border towns.
There's a new funding request from the White House in this war that includes $61.4 billion for Ukraine, $14.3 billion for Israel, and $9.15 billion for humanitarian aid split between Gaza, Ukraine, and Israel. Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn is among GOP leaders who sent a letter to Congress yesterday advising against any aid to Ukraine. In the nation's capital, the search for a House Speaker continues. Jim Jordan is now out of the running, stripped of the Republican nomination for the post by a secret vote of his colleagues following a third failed ballot on the White House floor. On the House floor, Tennessee Representative Andy Ogles joined WTN's The Matt Murphy Show to explain exactly how Jim Jordan got voted out amongst his colleagues today after a third ballot failed to elect him as Speaker of the House.
The Speaker pro tem goes up and says, look, we're going to recess and we're going to come back Monday night and we're going to start the candidate forums. Virtually the entire room yelled no. And he said, nope, we're going to go home. We need to take a break. Slow is fast was the phrase, which is just nonsense. And then the question was called. Let's put it to a vote as to whether or not we stay or go. And virtually the entire room called the question. And we were overruled, and because of Robert's Rules of Order, the House rules, essentially, we were gavelled out and sent home for the weekend.
He went on to say the majority of the representatives wanted to stay over the weekend, but were overruled. Because of that, there will be no vote on the floor on Monday, Tuesday at the earliest. A thief is on the loose in Tennessee. News 2 reports that Brentwood detectives are trying to track down a suspect in multiple auto thefts this week. Officials are using evidence in the form of text messages. A Challenger was stolen and 19-year-old Jeremiah Moore's phone pinged at the exact location around the same time that the vehicle was stolen. Further evidence reveals that Moore took a photo of the Challenger on his phone. Moore is now facing 15 different charges related to the alleged thefts. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather is next. I'm John Michael, WTN News.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's 10 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and I'll be with you through the this hour here, and then we're going to be turning it over to Mark Levin, the great one, right after the news at 7 o'clock. Man, we got a lot of stuff going on today, and because we know that people, jump into their car, on the hour and a half hour, and maybe you just got off work, or maybe you're just coming out of a bite of dinner, whatever it is, I want to make sure that you have the benefit of knowing what's going on with our big breaking stories of the day. We have no ground game in Israel and in Gaza yet. We have military that's just outside the gates in Gaza, but they have not entered in. There is some concern about the northern border with Lebanon, and so the Israelis have evacuated a town in northern Lebanon. The good news today is that 2 American hostages were released. We apparently were working with the folks in Qatar, and they were in turn trying to work on behalf of the United States to get a couple of Americans released, and they have been released. It is now believed that there are 9 Americans still being held hostage inside of Gaza. Some 600 Americans live in Gaza and want to get out right now, and that is moving quite a bit more slowly, as you might imagine. So that's the latest there. Nothing yet happening, but boy, it looks like it could happen in any minute. But we've been saying that for the better part of a week, I guess. The other big story happened in Washington today, where the third time was not a charm for Jim Jordan. His name was put forward for the third time today. So it started, he got 200 votes, then he went to 199 votes on the second round. Third round, he went to 194. Going the wrong direction when you need 217. And so they went behind closed doors, and Jordan said, should I stay in or should I get out? And there was a vote taken, and it was the recommendation that he no longer put his name forward. It didn't seem like it was going to get there. What happens next? We'll have to wait till Monday or Tuesday to find out. Everybody has been sent home for the weekend and told to return late on Monday for another session behind closed doors. But quite frankly, it is a big question mark as to how Republicans are going to solve this conundrum that they're in. Let me just run you through what happened today. Started early this morning, actually, about 8 o'clock this morning. Jim Jordan held a little press conference, a little rah-rah rally before the cameras to try to get his troops all in order for a vote later in the day.
We need to do what we said we were going to do. We need to do what we told them we were going to do when they elected us and put us in office. And frankly, we can't do that if the House isn't open. We can't open the House until we get a speaker.
Kevin McCarthy put his name in nomination.
Mr. Speaker, we have an important job to do. The American people expect us to focus on the most pressing issues. We've watched what the Democrat majority has done and brought us inflation like we haven't seen since the 70s. We've watched what the Democrats have done by opening up our border, bringing fentanyl, killing Americans each and every day. And now we have a war in Israel. This country is too great for small visions. Trust me, being Speaker is not an easy job, especially in this conference. But I've seen Jim spend his entire career fighting for freedom, no matter what, no matter the odds, and I know he is ready for the job. And so it is my honor to say, as a member of the Republican Conference, I am directed by the vote of that conference to present for the election to the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives the name of my friend, the Honorable Jim Jordan, a representative from the state of Ohio. I yield back.
Now, the Democrats put Hakeem Jeffries up, but in their nominating speech, they took a few shots. I mean, the Democrats are just reveling in this. They think this is fantastic to see the Republicans in such disarray, calling it a Republican civil war.
Every day, the majority chooses to engage in a Republican civil war that is threatening their own members instead of engaging with us in the work of the American people. Is a day that weakens this institution and the standing of our country.
All right, so that was Representative Catherine Clark. making the nomination for Hakeem Jeffries. And they then a roll call vote. It takes about an hour to go through that whole process to call out 435 names and then to make sure that all the numbers are added up correctly. And here's how the final vote read out earlier today, about 11:30.
The House will come to order. The tellers agree in their tally that the total number of votes cast is 429, of which the Honorable Jim Jordan of the state of Ohio has received 194. The Honorable Hakeem Jeffries of the state of New York has received 210. The Honorable Patrick McHenry of the state of North Carolina has received 6.
Patrick McHenry is actually reading the numbers.
All right, the House will come to order. The House will come to order. The Honorable Byron Donalds of the state of Florida has received 2. The Honorable Tom Emmer of the state of Minnesota has received 1. Lee Zeldin of the state of New York has received 4. The Honorable Steve Scalise of the state of Louisiana has received 8. The Honorable Mike Garcia of the state of California has received 1. The Honorable Kevin McCarthy of the state of California has received 2. The Honorable Bruce Westerman of the state of Arkansas has received 1. No person having received a majority of the whole number of votes cast by surname, a speaker has not been elected. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the chair declares the House in recess, subject to the call of the chair.
And then they went behind closed doors, and as I told you earlier, they told Jim Jordan they didn't think it'd make any sense to put his name forward again. And then they were told, go home, sleep on it, come back Monday, let a little time pass, see if we can get through this thing on Monday or Tuesday. Probably the next vote will take place on Tuesday because they don't really get there into Washington until late Monday evening. So they'll meet Monday evening and then they'll come together for some kind of vote ostensibly Tuesday morning. Chad Pergram, who I have a great deal of respect for, a man who's really plugged in up there, man who really understands how things work on Capitol Hill to a great degree, has said that he thinks it may take weeks. I think that would be a disaster. And I think there is a growing anger for the original Vacate 8 who started this whole thing, led by Matt Gaetz. My personal opinion is they did a great disservice. And we make us look a little foolish. And I just, I don't know how it's going to get resolved. And actually, if somebody tells you they know how it's going to get resolved, they don't really know what they're talking about because nobody knows right now. I mean, literally, they all left town today to go back home for the weekend, and they don't have a stinking clue as to how this whole thing is going to be resolved. So, does somebody come from the outside? It can happen. It has never happened before. Is there some name that might rise up? You see, the problem is you've got about 20 members who are Republicans, who are part of the caucus. We would not have the majority without them, so we need them, or we wouldn't have control of the House. But those 20 come from states where they are really going to catch hell if they support somebody who's too conservative. They don't want to be caught up and have to face those 60-second ads in a state like Colorado, for example, or in New York, where, they're very purple states. They don't want to have to, go up against that 60-second. He was aligned with Jim Jordan, the most conservative member of the House, a man who did blah, 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 and the whole thing. They don't want, they will use the dreaded Bram. You know what a Bram is? This is a Bram. Congressman Jones voted with Jim Jordan to make him Speaker of the House. See, they don't want that. And that's what will happen. So we'll see what happens. We have to come up with some kind of solution. Somebody's got to give. I think it's time for Republicans to start thinking less of themselves as individuals and looking at their individual problems and think more about what is in the best interest of the party And then just, let's get back to it. I mean, let's get busy. Things are happening in the world that need our attention. Now, coming up in a few minutes, there is a new document that has been uncovered by the investigators that are looking into the business dealings of Hunter Biden and the Biden family that is probably as close as anything we've seen into a smoking gun that connects President Biden to their business dealings, the shady business dealings of the Biden family. And I'll get to that story coming up after this break, 20 minutes now, past the hour of 6 o'clock. There are a lot of not diagnoses out there, and there's a pill for just about everything, but not all diagnoses are correct and accurate, and not all pills are good for you. When you get a diagnosis for European auto repair, maybe you want to get a second opinion before you make a major decision. And Eurofix is the home for second opinions. Before you spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars on European vehicle repair from a diagnosis you got somewhere, why don't you go to Eurofix? It might save your vehicle's life. It could actually save you from a lot of stress. Listen, be happy. Go to Eurofix. At Eurofix, you'll get a free 15-minute no-wrench inspection with an estimate at every visit. No high-pressure sales tactics. At Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. At Eurofix, you never pay dealer prices. Locations: Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now Mount Juliet. Call 844-EUROFIX or visit myEurofix.com and tell them your friend and radio buddy Brian Wilson sent you.
Hey everybody, Dan Mattis with Nashville's Morning News on WTN. I'm here at the Nashville Rescue Mission doing the interviews that I look forward to doing every single year. These are incredible stories of people who have had amazing recoveries. Thanks to this amazing facility, they are able to get clean and lead a more productive life. The date of our annual Radiothon is going to be Monday, November 20th. Listen in and please donate. You can get more information at 99.7 WTN, including a link to the website for Nashville's Rescue Mission.
The latest on the war between Hamas and Israel, and we'll have today's closing money news. That's coming up at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
There is a story that broke this afternoon, just before the House of Representatives broke up and went home, and it is perhaps the smoking gun we've been looking for with regard to connecting the shady business dealings of Hunter Biden and his the Biden family to the former Vice President and now President of the United States, Joe Biden. I remember because we got Joe Biden, who has said 1,000 times, "Hey, I've never ever had anything to do with those business dealings.
I've never discussed my business or their business, my sons or daughters. I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings. I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses."
And Karine Jean-Pierre said, "Listen, there's no evidence of wrongdoing here."
And let me just say, it is a no evidence impeachment inquiry. It is baseless. There's no evidence. Even Republicans in Congress have said there's no evidence. It doesn't exist. And so that's the thing that the American people need to also realize. There is nothing there.
Well, James Comer, who is heading up the investigation with the House Oversight Committee into the activities of the Hunter Biden, but really what they're really trying to find out is, was there any evidence that some of this money made its way to the then Vice President, now President of the United States, Joe Biden, and was there a this for that? Was there a quid pro quo? Did he receive money in exchange for official actions? And there's a lot of evidence that sort of suggests that. But it's finding that one document that showed that money actually went into his personal account hasn't been found until today. That's right. This could be big. I want you to hear James Comer describe what it is they have found with a bunch of new bank documents that just came in.
This summer, Joe Biden said, "Where's the money?" Well, we found some. We're still digging into evidence subpoenaed from bank accounts belonging to Hunter Biden, the son of President Joe Biden, and James and Sarah Biden, the brother and sister-in-law of the president. A document that we're releasing today raises new questions about how President Biden personally benefited from his family's shady influence peddling of his last name and their access to him. Bank records obtained by the House Committee on Oversight have revealed a $200,000 direct payment from James and Sarah Biden to Joe Biden in the form of a personal check. Here's some important context about this check we've obtained in our investigation. In 2018, James Biden received $600,000 in loans from AmeriCorps, a financially distressed and failing rural hospital operator. According to bankruptcy court documents, James Biden received these loans, quote, based upon representations that his last name, Biden, could open doors and that he could obtain a large investment from the Middle East based on his political connections, end quote. On March 1st, 2018, AmeriCorps wired a $200,000 loan into James and Sarah Biden's personal bank account, not their business bank account. And then on the very same day, James Biden wrote a $200,000 check from this same personal bank account to Joe Biden. James Biden wrote this check to Joe Biden as a, quote, loan repayment. AmeriCorps, a distressed company, loaned money to James Biden, who then sent it to Joe Biden. Even if this was a personal loan repayment, it's still troubling that Joe Biden's ability to be paid back by his brother depended on the success of his family's shady financial dealings. Some immediate questions President Biden must answer for the American people. Does he have documents proving he lent such a large sum of money to his brother? And what were the terms of such financial agreement? Did he have similar financial agreements with other family members that led them to make similar large payments to him? And did he know that the same day James Biden wrote him a check for $200,000, James Biden had just received a loan for the exact same amount from business dealings with a company that was in financial distress and failing? The House Oversight Committee will soon announce our next investigative actions and continue to follow the money. The bank records don't end here. There's more to come.
Wow. So you got a financial institution that's in trouble, and they turn to James Biden, who says, I can get you out of trouble because, the Biden family name's got a lot of clout. We'll find you some funding. Maybe we'll use it to find some funding for the Middle East. Don't worry. But, it's going to cost you to have me do that. So they sent him $200,000, which he immediately turned around and sent to his brother, the then vice president of the United States, now president of the United States, Joe Biden. The money goes from AmeriCorps to James to Joe. And the question is, did Joe Biden do anything as a result of receiving that $200,000? Did he reach out to any of the people who could help AmeriCorps? One way or the other, they were trading on the family name. That's influence peddling. And no matter how you clean it up by transferring the money from this account to that account to this account and to that account, it still doesn't smell right, does it? So that is under investigation now, and they're just beginning to go through the rest of those documents that have just come in. 31 minutes now, past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk.
It's 6:30. I'm John Michael with your top stories. Sunny and 69 on Music Row. The forecast and the latest traffic report are upcoming. President Biden is reacting to the news of 2 American hostages released by Hamas. Judith Renan and her daughter Natalie Renan. A family member said they were in Israel for a relative's birthday when they were taken hostage. The Israel Defense Forces confirming that the 2 women are now with the Red Cross. Their conditions were not immediately clear. Karen Travers has the latest.
President Biden says he is overjoyed 2 American hostages released by Hamas will soon be reunited with their families. He says in a new statement the 2 women and their family will have the full support of the U.S. government as they recover and heal, adding, quote, "We should all respect their privacy in this moment." The president says his administration has been working around the clock to free American citizens taken hostage by Hamas. He thanks the governments of Qatar and Israel for their partnership in this effort. Mr. Biden adding, quote, "Jill and I have been holding close in our hearts all the families of unaccounted for Americans," and says he has no higher priority than the safety of Americans held hostage around the world.
There's a new funding request from the White House in this war that includes $61.4 billion for Ukraine, $14.3 billion for Israel, and $9.15 billion for humanitarian aid split between Gaza, Ukraine, and Israel. With today's closing money news, here's Michelle Franzen.
Wall Street closing out its worst week in a month with even more losses. The Dow gave up 287 points. The S&P lost 54, and the Nasdaq ended down 202 points. Stocks have been under pressure from the bond market, where the yield on a 10-year Treasury briefly hit 5% Thursday for the first time since 2007. Those high yields make borrowing more expensive. Policymakers in Washington keeping a close watch on the Israel-Hamas war, which could have an impact on the energy market. Spirit Airlines forced to cancel about 100 flights Friday because nearly 24 planes were pulled from service for routine inspections. The Consumer Product Safety Commission is recalling more than 60,000 biometric gun safes because a programming feature can allow unauthorized access. The agency says there have been 39 reports from owners that their safes have been accessed by unauthorized fingerprints.
That's the latest news. Traffic and weather are on the way. I'm John Michael, WTN News.
Let me tell you, if I could, about Grace Point Healthcare, delivering medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing so you'll know how much it will cost before the care is delivered. Now, this is the time of year where people are making healthcare decisions. You got to pick, your insurance. Maybe you have one of those high deductible plans. And listen, this Smart Care plan that they have over at Grace Point might fit in just really nice with that. $69 a month, you get unlimited office visits, free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the whole family, even newborns, they offer family plans as well. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They see you the same or next day. No long wait times, no crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible. It is a military vet-owned practice, and this is just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toast of Music City year after year after year. Grace Point Healthcare on Main Street in Franklin. Here's the number, 599-6868. That's 599-6868 to schedule a visit.
Specifically regarding precision ag, this is a movement or an initiative that Pheasants and Quail Forever has taken on where we can help farmers take advantage of the data they collect and during harvest, during planting season, and use that to identify areas in the field that are underproducing for whatever reason. Maybe it's shade, water, there's perennial wet spots, odd areas that are just hard to farm. Farm equipment's getting big now, and it's hard to farm some of these smaller areas. And so these areas that the yield isn't high enough to exceed the input costs, we're losing money on those acres. So Are there some alternate land use covers, wildlife covers that we can use and put on the ground that benefit wildlife but also benefit the bottom line? There's a lot of opportunities, a lot of conservation programs and conservation practices out there that can benefit the land, and they require management. And so some people might be familiar with the Conservation Reserve Program, or CRP. And that is a program administered by USDA for farmers and landowners to take those certain areas out of production and return them to a wildlife cover beneficial to different wildlife.
We started taking non-productive acres years ago and putting them in CRP, and seeing a great benefit of that, not only for wildlife, but erosion control and the money side of it. We have to make a living to stay in business just like everybody else. If you've got non-productive acres that you're losing money on, and you can get something out of them, plus benefit the soil from erosion, plus benefit the wildlife.
.39 past the hour of 6 o'clock. Good evening, everybody. On this Friday, October 20th, we've got just a few more minutes together before you and I begin our weekend. And Mark Levin will take over after the news at 7 o'clock. A lot of stuff to talk about. We've been so focused on what's happening with the speaker's race and what's happening in the Mideast and Israel, etc., that there are a lot of other stories that don't get a lot of attention, and I want to try to get some of these through. Today, the Dow fell more than 100 points, and 10-year treasuries reached 5%. Now, that's a pretty high number, not seen since 2007. And I have a graph here that tells me exactly what the yields are. Some of these yields on treasury bonds, not bad. For example, the 1-month treasury, 5.4% yield. The 3-month treasury, almost 5. The 6-month treasury, 5.5. The 1-year treasury, 5.4. Those are pretty good rates, for it's pretty safe money. You put it in a treasury bond and you get paid. And so, a lot of people are moving out of the market and into bonds right now. That's what happens when bond yields go up. But the market goes down, and the market did go down again today. And by the way, a lot of volatility in the market, and gold is up. Every time I look at gold, it's like $20, $30, $40 more an ounce. It's really going up in value. Mortgage rates, however, are also going up, and that's bad news. Mortgage rates moved very close to 8% this week. That's levels not seen in some 23 years, and it's just crushing the hopes of people who are trying to buy a home or want to have a home of their own. The average rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage is increased to 7.63. The rate has topped 7% for the last 10 straight weeks, and we've not seen anything like that since the housing bust of 2000. Rates continue to hold home buyers and sellers in a vice grip. It means it's very expensive now to try to own a home, and you just don't get as much bang for your buck when you have to pay those higher interest rates. And a lot of buyers have backed out of the market. People aren't buying new homes. They aren't building new homes. And the inventory is way up from where it was. However, the really interesting thing is in most markets, home values have not gone down. Usually when you have the values when in a market like this will go down, but that hasn't happened here, especially here in Nashville. They have not gone down. So if you have a home, you're fortunate, and you're not going down in value. You're not going to be upside down if you've had your home for a while, probably. Let's see. A couple of 2A stories, Second Amendment stories that I think are interesting. A federal court ruled that a ban on certain types of semi-automatic weapons, semi-automatic rifles, over other rifles is akin to banning some books because there are other books to read. This is a federal court judge has ruled that California's ban on certain types of semi-automatic rifles, what they call assault weapons, don't yell at me, I'm just saying that's what they call them, is an unconstitutional violation of the Second Amendment. Gun rights groups celebrate this ruling in Miller versus Bonta, even though they acknowledge the fight is not over. Federal Judge Roger T. Benitez ruling will almost certainly be appealed to the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco, the nutty 9th. But for the moment, the Second Amendment Foundation and its partners in the lawsuit are celebrating a victory. In a statement released after the decision was announced, California Governor Gavin Newsom confirmed he is not done pushing for stricter gun control in his state and in the country. And he says Judge Benitez is hell-bent on making it more dangerous for our kids to go to school. Really rare for a governor to attack a judge, but he did. We are working with the Attorney General to fight this extreme and logically incoherent ruling and keep California safer. Look, I don't know for sure what the nutty 9th is going to do, but I'm pretty sure what the Supreme Court would do, and based on some of their more recent rulings, and I think this ruling probably long-term will stand. I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on the radio on occasion. Speaking of guns, in Israel, you would think that everybody carries a gun, but that's really not true. Gun laws in Israel are quite stringent, and Israel has now relaxed the country's restrictive gun laws because they're in a war with Hamas, and they want to give the Israeli people an opportunity to protect themselves. Everybody, when this happened, and people were getting slaughtered in Israel, I don't mean to laugh about it because it's not funny at all. It's really sad. But a lot of people in America said, okay, this is why we need an AR-15. You know what? If there had been a few more AR-15s in southern Israel, then there might be a few more people alive and a few more dead terrorists. Private citizens in Israel are granted firearm license only if they can prove they need extra security in their line of work for daily life. An online petition to ease gun permit rules gained 22,000 signatures in 24 hours. People are changing their opinion, and now there is more awareness. It's a pity it's happening this way. I've been involved with groups that have been talking about the issue for years. During calm times, people don't do anything, said Raz Bislovsky, a person who's very much, they don't have a Second Amendment in Israel, but very much in favor of gun rights. Israeli strikes on Gaza have killed 2,778 people, wounded some 9,700. And there was, of course, a great loss of life in Israel when the Hamas attacked. National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir last week announced plans to arm civilian security teams in towns near the country's border. Now, that's a good idea. Every city resident will be able to get an armament license. We are facing Operation Guardian of the Walls 2, so we'll be ensuring that we are prepared with guns on every street corner. Yeah. I'm telling you, the problem is when you need a gun and you don't have one, it's a little too late. But maybe they will, look this thing over again and relax some of these laws so that people have the opportunity to defend themselves. As a very liberal friend of mine once said, and he was very, surprisingly, though he was very liberal, he was very much in favor of the Second Amendment. And I asked him why, and he said, I don't ever want to be in a position where it's all them and no me. And I think that's exactly right. You just don't want to be in that position. The only thing I've ever shot in my entire life as somebody who cares deeply about the Second Amendment is paper plates. You put them on a fence post, you get a little target practice in. I mean, that's the extent of anything I've ever done with a gun. I've never really gone hunting. I don't really want to go hunting. But I'm hell on them paper plates. But if I need it, I've got it. Believe me, Stately Wilson Manor is well armed, in case anybody wants to cause trouble. I want to do this if I could, because we're the program that believes that the truth is out there. A new Pentagon memo reveals almost 300 reports of potential UFO encounters since August of 22. That's right, 291 UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. And it's really interesting this is how they sort of have described this in this new report. 53% of those did not have a reported morphology or a form. Among those with reported characteristics, 25% reported as being an orb or round. The remainder reported as other shapes from triangles to cylinders. A small portion was reported as ambiguous sensor contacts. The vast majority of UAPs were reported as having no light, 79% no lights. And some of them have just been described as going really, really fast and having unique maneuverability characteristics. And they are continuing to and a lot of these things are happening in military zones, and the reason why that may be is that's where our military pilots are when they see them. I don't know that they are focused on military zones or war zones like they've been seen a lot in where our ships are located off the South China Sea, and our ships are located in the Mediterranean, in the Middle East. They see them a lot there, but that's because that's where we are, and that's where we have the resources to see them, and pilots that are in the air all the time. So, that may be that they're focused on our military. It may be that they're looking at our military zones. They seem to be able to enter and leave. And they're not very big, by the way, between 1 and 4 feet, most people say. They can move. They've been identified as going as many as 4 times the speed of sound instantaneously. 0 to gone. I don't know. But anyway, the 300 reports since August of 22, and they have a new office there at the military called AARO, A-A-R-O, Anomaly Resolution Office, and they were established in July of 22, and they began looking, and this is their sort of intermediate report. Most are white, silver, or translucent. I don't know. We see an awful lot of weird things that we can't explain. Is it something that we're being observed by, some other, I don't know, people from other planets? Or is this our own military with secret stuff that they're not telling us about? Is it one of our adversaries on the world stage All of these are viable possibilities, and no one seems to know for sure the way it stands. It is now 50 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. A question for you. How are you faring in this rough and tumble market? The experts at Beacon Capital Management understand it can be a little scary. But here's the thing. Beacon Capital Management has a plan to assess where you are and help you make any mid-course corrections that may be needed. Sometimes it's a small thing, not a big thing. Wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path as you head toward retirement? Beacon can provide that reassurance, but it starts with a simple phone call. Here's the number. Write it down, 615-488-9303. 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon will ask you some questions, and then they'll get back to you with some recommendations. What do you have to lose except for all the worry? Get started today by calling that number, 615-488-9303. At the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets your retirement goals. Replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away. Learn more at askbeaconnow.com.
One of the big words being thrown around in the investing world right now is this one. You may have heard it. Fiduciary. The idea that the investment advisor has to keep your interest first when they give advice. Now, it's being used in a marketing sense right now, and one of the things that I found fascinating, there was a study by the University of Southern California and Indiana University. They looked at investment advisor portfolios and they found that they were making basic academic mistakes in the management of their own portfolios. And the question that they asked was, if they can't even keep their own best interest first, how are they going to keep your best interest first? That was the question. Now, one of the things that we do at Paul Winkler Inc. is every one of our offices, 10 offices, is run by a degreed planner, number one. But we go way beyond the call of duty when it comes to fiduciary and making sure that we're using academically sound principles in investing. Evidence-based. In other words, it's backed by a lot of this is backed by Nobel Prize winning research. To learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.